abusive statements. Secondly, be respectful of the views expressed by others, even if you disagree with them. Third, do not disrupt the orderly conduct of our meeting. Any person who engages in conduct that disrupts this meeting is subject to being muted or being expelled from the meeting. In addition, let me say that speakers need to cease speaking when their time has ended. That's important if we're going to be able to adhere to our limited time we have for our public hearings. And public comments need to be related to the agenda item being discussed, except for the last general public comment, which can be anything that's relevant to the oversight mission of the commission. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to ask Ms. Jordan to please call the roll so we can establish that we have a quorum.
I will now conduct roll call. Chair Robert C. Bonner.
Present.
Commissioner Luis S. Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Hans Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Arthur Callaway.
Here.
Commissioner Irma Cooper.
Here.
Commissioner Patricia Giggins. Absent. Commissioner James P. Harris.
Present.
Commissioner Jaman R. Hicks. Absent. Commissioner Sean Kennedy.
Here.
Chair Bonner, we have a quorum. I turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now turning to the first, well, not the first item, it's the fourth item on the agenda, which is the consent calendar. Let me just say that I've been informed that that the minutes from our November 21st meeting are not fully prepared, and so for that reason, were not circulated. The intent is to circulate minutes of our November 21st meeting at our January meeting for approval at that time. So the long and short of it is there's nothing on the consent calendar to approve. So we're going to move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is well, it's the chair's report. All right. So let me defer any comments for the moment on the 2024 and 2025 strategic plan priorities and goals, and just briefly mention items 1B and 1C on the agenda, which have to do with both of which are connected with attachments, brief reports that I've made with respect to a couple of meetings. But let me just briefly summarize that with respect to item 1B. Commissioners Cooper and Garcia and I met with Eileen, and the executive director met with Eileen Decker a couple of weeks ago, following a concern expressed by the Sheriff Luna, regarding the number of oversight entities that oversee the LA County jail or jail system, and the LA Sheriff's Department's running at that jail system, and the burden on the Sheriff's Department of having to comply with multiple and sometimes overlapping and duplicative requests from various oversight bodies, including ours. My report is attached. I won't read the report, but the bottom line is that there are at least 6 entities with some level of oversight, including this commission of the county jails, and including the Office of Inspector General and Civil Brand Commission. So those are 3 entities right there that have some degree of, well, we have full oversight over the county jails, and so does the IG, and Civil Brand Institute has some oversight and inspectional authorities with respect to the jails. Added to that, there are 3 federal court-appointed monitors, and the bottom line is that the Civilian Oversight Commission should endeavor, and we will endeavor, to better coordinate with the IG and the Civil Brand Commission, and even counsel for the monitors when we can do that. So that we'll at least attempt to avoid duplications of effort and multiple or duplicative requests for information from the Sheriff's Department. This task, by the way, of trying to prevent duplicative effort will mainly fall, by the way, on the for our purposes of our commission, on the ad hoc committee that deals with conditions of confinement in the county jail. And I believe we have here, yes, we do, Commissioner Cooper, who is the lead or the chair of that ad hoc committee. The second report attached relates to a meeting that I, the executive director, and Commissioners Garcia and Harris had with Inspector General Max Huntsman, who I'm pleased to see is here with us this morning. In this meeting, we discussed essentially our current practice, which is to refer complaints by citizens or residents of the county regarding conduct or misconduct by a deputy sheriff that have been made to us. If there's been if the complaint essentially is that there's some dissatisfaction with how the sheriff's department is handling that complaint from a member of the public. We typically have in the past, and based on our conversation with Mr. Huntsman, will continue, at least for the time being, to be able to refer those matters to the Inspector General, who will, and has in the past, by the way, and we commend him for this, has followed up on when we have done so. The question of, there is a question of how such complaints will be handled in the future, and that'll be one of the things that the new ad hoc committee, the complaints ad hoc committee, will study and examine and determine what's the best way to proceed in the future. But for now, the Inspector General has graciously agreed to allow the current practice to proceed with the very significant limitation that the Inspector General cannot provide to the commission access to the status of how a sheriff's department complaint has been handled. He can tell us that it has been handled. He can give us limited information, but he's unable to share any confidential information regarding the adequacy of the sheriff's department investigation or any decision regarding discipline or any decision to take any action by the sheriff's department. He cannot share that with the commission or even with an ad hoc committee of the commission. I mean, this is the Inspector General's position, and I respect it because their concern is that, among other things, the State Attorney General is prosecuting a former member of the District Attorney's Office, Diana Turan, for unlawfully disclosing allegedly confidential information. So needless to say, if the Civilian Oversight Commission, let me just make a point here, and we'll discuss this further, I think, as we get on with the meeting. But let me just make one point, and that is that if the Civilian Oversight Commission, if this body is going to have true oversight, it, or at least the relevant ad hoc committee of this commission, must have access to confidential information. I mean, we don't, but we must have access, and that we'll talk about that a little bit more as this meeting progresses. The IG also points out, rightly, that there is nothing his office can do, or for that matter, we can do, if the complaint to the sheriff's department, if the person who's making the complainant is dissatisfied with the action taken by the department. There is no appellate process. There's no way the IG can say, no, that's discipline, you should have disciplined, or that discipline was inadequate, should have investigated more. No way the IG's office can do that, or we can do that. I don't think that's a good system, but that is the system today. I'm just saying where we are presently. So, but I wanted to give a report, and I wanted to thank the Inspector General for essentially continuing to, when we refer them an issue that has been raised to us by a member of the public, by a member of the community, that the complaint is, they're not getting feedback on the complaint, et cetera, that you have followed up on that, and as I understand it, will continue to do so. But let me pause there. Those are my two brief reports, but I want to perhaps it would be appropriate to call on the Inspector General, Mr. Huntsman, if he wanted to make any comment. I want to make sure that I didn't misstate anything, Max.
No, I think you stated it well, although there's a little bit more I would point out, which is in our ordinance, we are permitted to look at an investigation by the Sheriff's Department, conclude that it was not complete, and under limited circumstances, by county ordinance, conduct an independent investigation, which I do not think is the best practice of how to do that, because of course we don't have any authority to discipline or to make any changes. As I have reported for a decade now, we regularly report on poor conduct of the Sheriff's Department. We have a report that just came out with such reporting. We did one earlier this year. There's a whole long list of them. And under the previous sheriff, I was criminally investigated for my conduct. Under the current sheriff, there was an announcement that they would implement our recommendations and this commission's recommendations unless they had a strong reason not to. And we have reported on that too, that has not happened. And the reason I point that out is I think the bully pulpit only goes so far, and our inability to do anything real is a very serious problem. The correction to what's going on has to come externally. I also wanted to point out that there's another legal reason why we cannot provide more detailed confidential information. By California law, almost everything about a complaint to the Sheriff's Department, in addition to allowing the Sheriff's Department to investigate itself, which I think is nuts, we also have a system whereby they don't have to tell anybody how that went. And as the chair pointed out, the Attorney General is currently prosecuting a deputy district attorney. And the legal theory under which it appears that case was sent to trial was that the providing of a public record from one deputy district attorney to another for consideration as to whether or not it triggers a constitutional duty to inform the defense as exculpatory evidence that was confirmed by the California Supreme Court in ALADS versus County, that is a criminal act if that DA learned of it through their work in looking at confidential information when that person worked at the Sheriff's Department. That's a very aggressive position. But beyond that, we attempted to investigate gangs and were quickly enjoined by the Superior Court. That
Max, if I could just interrupt,
Yes.
but we're going to discuss all these issues that you're talking about. I just wanted to confirm that the current practice would be that's what we're going to do, because it's the only way we can actually have any visibility is through the IG into a member of the public who's made a complaint. And we're going to get into all those issues you're talking about. We're setting up a whole new, I believe, we'll see, complaints ad hoc committee and the like to try to address these broader issues you're talking about.
Well, you said it was the position of the Inspector General that we can't give you confidential information. That's what I'm addressing.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
So as I said, we were enjoined by the court from proceeding in that process. And so we are restricted from any investigatory capacity. At this time, as the chair says, we will indeed communicate with the COC and do what we can with matters that are referred to us. However, the Sheriff's Department has the more legal ability to provide you information than we do at this time due to court action, the action of the Attorney General, and the advice of County Counsel. And I'll leave it at that, and we can talk about these other issues later.
Yeah, and I just so everybody understands too that there's a legal action that was brought, I believe, is by ALADS. In any event, the effect of it is to block both the IG and this commission from being able to issue subpoenas to any represented person, union represented person, and that's another obstacle that's been thrown in our path. Is that a fair statement, Max?
But again, there's more to it. We are also enjoined from other actions, and we are completely blocked from investigating.
Okay. So you may be in, well, I don't know that you're in a worse position than the Civilian Oversight Commission in terms of being able to do oversight, but maybe you're in no better position than we are. Okay, so I think what I'd like to do, I put the reports in there to read. They're just reports of meetings and where we are in terms of currently and what our efforts will be to try to avoid duplication with respect to requests for informations relating to the jail. But before, because we are going to get to these issues of where we want to be in the future as an oversight commission with respect to handling of complaints by citizens and residents, let me defer further discussion and call on our executive director for her report.
Thank you, Chair Bonner. And I'll try to keep my report short just because this is a planning meeting. Good morning, everyone. Some of our activities over the last month include the following highlights. As far as staffing goes, we do have a communications manager. Christina, please stand up. And sorry, I don't want to mess up your last name, so please say your last name. Yes, thank you. So Christina joined our team on December 2nd. She brings with us 15 years of experience as a reporter and 10 years as a media and public relations professional. She joined us from the Homeless Initiative at the LA County Chief Executive Office, where her work earned an Emmy Award nomination. So that's excellent. Earlier in her career, Christina served as a communications deputy to Supervisors Mark Ridley Thomas and Zev. Before joining the county, she worked as a reporter for the LA Daily News, CBS Radio, and City News Service. Christina is originally from the Philippines, where she worked as a newspaper and television reporter from prominent media outlets before immigrating to LA. We also have a temporary employee who was recently assigned to us. The EO also transferred Joel Torres to assist our team with various projects and assignments for the next 3 months. Joel, can you raise your hand? Let them know. Joel comes to us from District 4, Supervisor Han's office, so welcome Christina and Joel. Although we have 2 recent new hires and 1 transfer temporary employee, we are still at a deficit when it comes to our senior staff analyst positions. It is important that I also mention that our management analyst is out until January. These staff deficiencies have already added increased responsibilities on our principal staff analyst and our deputy executive director. At our last meeting, I highlighted our budget request for additional staff positions for our unit, so I will not go over that at this meeting. The original number of 9 budgeted positions initially set for the commission years ago is insufficient for the work of this commission. And the next item is going to be our commission activity, so I'll update on that. We put, first I wanted to report that Commissioner Jamon Hicks, who is not with us today, was reappointed by Supervisor Mitchell to continue serving on this important commission. Due to the holidays, the CAC meetings have slowed down until January. However, we've held meetings with the Inspector General and staff, as our chair just reported. Meetings also with the Office of Constitutional Policing, LASD, and community members. We've participated in meetings with IT staff to discuss the development of an online complaint form and dashboard. Commission staff planning meetings regarding community engagement, town halls, and mini conferences. We also participated in NACO's webinar of firearms and meetings of our various ad hoc committees. Commissioners also attended LASD's graduation and the FIP step-down graduation at TTCF. I just wanted to note that we have an upcoming town hall scheduled for Thursday, January 23rd on LASD's response to the World Series celebrations in East LA. And that came about from community feedback at our last meeting. Robert, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Good morning. So we do have our first town hall plan for 2025. Commissioners Johnson, Commissioner Garcia, and Executive Director Mosley and Community Organizer Carlos Montes are going to be our panelists. Like she said, we want to hear from the community about LASD's response to those celebrations in East LA during the playoffs in the World Series. Our next town hall is scheduled to take place in the Antelope Valley sometime in the coming year, and we'll announce a date and time in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out the town hall that will be held in East LA is also going to look into the question of the continued use of the Fort Apache symbol. We heard from two members of the community at our last meeting. So we want to find out, did that happen? How many were wearing Fort Apache pins on their uniforms, and why that's continuing? So in any event, that'll be part of the inquiry. And of course, people that attend that meeting too, that's going to be the topical focus. But of course, any member of the community, particularly in East LA, can also raise other issues with us at that town hall meeting.
Thank you, Chair Bonner. I believe the flyers are out in the hall on the table, and we might have to revise the flyers to reflect that as well. So my last item on my report is going to be internal operations and improvements. And as far as internal operations, the ongoing educational training curriculum for all commissioners will be developed in 2025. That's something that I promised sometime this year, but I haven't gotten to it yet. We are working with the IT department to develop an online complaint form. And this is something that the team was working on back in 2018. So we picked it back up. The development of a dashboard for our website is also something we are looking at. We are also working on creating a day-to-day operation manual, which we reported out over the last few months. And we are hoping to have this completed in 2025. I also wanted to provide an update on our annual report for 2024. Since we switched the annual report to cover the calendar year instead of the fiscal year, we will have a slight delay on this release. Information for the last few months will need to be added to the report. This information is being updated by our principal staff analyst, who also has numerous priorities on her list as well, since we're short-staffed. We also want to make sure that our commission's accomplishments for the year is also included in this report. And the list of accomplishments is also made available in our commissioner's packets, and I believe it's outside on the table as well. I'll summarize the accomplishments later on in today's meeting. Item B is the tentative 2025 schedule for our commission meetings, and that's linked to the agenda. We will continue to meet here until we hear otherwise from the executive officer. And that brings me to item C, regarding the commission's request to meet in the Hall of Administration's hearing room for our monthly meetings. Earlier this week, I did meet with the executive officer, Eddie Yen. He wants to make sure that the location of our meetings is practical for everyone who attends. So they are still evaluating from the security and cost perspective. So I will continue to work with the EO's office on the commission's request. I believe Commissioner Johnson looking at me, so you might have something you want to say. I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Eagerly awaiting an answer on.
Yeah, I think it's, but yeah, and I don't know what, I just want to say that I think it's vitally important that the commission have an adequate place for its hearings next year. And we have presented our reasoning why we believe that the Board of Supervisors hearing room probably is only going to be available for another year anyway, since there's going to be a new county building downtown. But it should be made available both from a security cost and accessibility and capacity basis. It clearly is the ideal place for us to conduct our meetings. So I don't know how we move this forward, but perhaps offline, we can have a discussion with the executive director as to how we make this happen, because it seems pretty painfully obvious that what the right choice should be. And I'm interested, has the executive office, have they turned down our request to have our meetings next year in the Hall of the Board of Supervisors hearing room?
No, he has not turned down the request. He's still looking at it.
I have one other question before we get to the last item that you're going to report on. I know we're down staff. We're basically, is it correct to say we are authorized 9? We're down 1 staff member, and we have 2 staffers that are essentially on leaves of absences, Ingrid and now Nunez, who, although we expect her to return in January. Is that an accurate statement?
That is correct.
You know, we need 2 mics for us, but anyway.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, so the last item you were going to report on was the status of the.
Yes, so far, according to our meeting schedule, we will be meeting here until further notice. So item D is the status of the commission's proposed revisions to chapter 3.79 of the county code. And I did reach out to county counsel's office as well as to our council liaison, Jensen. And I was told that they should be providing us with feedback, and I believe submitting it to back to the EO's office by the end of the year. And I was looking for Jensen to see if he has anything he wanted to add.
When you say back to the the county council will submit it back to the EO's office by the end of the year. What do you understand county council to mean by that?
I'll turn that over to Jensen. Jensen?
Thank you, Ms. Mosley, and thank you, Chair Bonner. Yes, we're completing our review of the ordinance, and we're going to submit it to the executive officer by the end of the year. That's the plan at this point. We can certainly circle back on an update once it's submitted to the EOs to talk about the next steps.
Can you characterize that in any way at this point?
As far as characterizing it, we're just reviewing the legal issues regarding the ordinance, and then we're going to send the ordinance to the executive officer for his review.
Do you have
So-
any initial assessments of that report? It would be sad to miss an opportunity to clarify in a public gathering something about the considerations that are going into that, rather than using the end of the year perhaps as an opaque deadline under which we will not be gathering back in this forum until January, maybe to assess what was done more in a private communication. Let's, if we can, shed some sunlight on that maybe?
I think at this point, Commissioner, first of all, your concerns are definitely valid, and I do appreciate it. But I think at this point, it's best we circle back at the end of the year, and we can certainly circle back with Charmaine and Chair Bonner at that point with any issues.
Okay, I just want to make the point to county council and to all assembled that these revisions that we prepared, by the way, we submitted to the Board of Supervisors in September of this year. So it's been nearly 3 months now. They initially, of course, went through the executive office for the Board of Supervisors. They have been transmitted to county council. These revisions, I want to remind everybody, I mean, they are essential to real and true oversight, effective oversight of the Sheriff's Department. Without them, there will not be true and effective oversight. This is especially true regarding the amendment that would give this commission, through its ad hoc committees, access to confidential information about the allegations of deputy misconduct and the like, information without which there cannot be true oversight. So I'm calling on the Board of Supervisors now to act on these revisions at its next scheduled meeting. And I would call on county council to move these recommendations forward to the Board of Supervisors so it can act to enact these revisions to our ordinance at its next scheduled meeting. Thank you. By the way, let me ask, is that the consensus of the commission, or am I speaking only for myself? Let me ask. Put it up.
They're all shaking their heads.
Yes.
Yes.
I think your remarks accurately capture at least the impatience of this commissioner, and I see assent from my fellow commissioners about moving ahead as expeditiously as possible with that consideration by the supervisors, especially given reports that representatives of the Sheriff's Department are already circling around opposing these amendments to the ordinance. I want to raise that concern explicitly here because it is troubling to me that lobbying may already be proceeding against these common sense revisions to our ordinance that reflect the common sense of the community testimony. We've heard at repeated public forums and at this gathering, and that this should not be put forward, and that the Sheriff's Department's representatives might already be lobbying on the premise of the Turan case as a basis for opposing the ordinance is extremely troubling. And I do think we need to act with speed and with directness about this opportunity, lest the window close for meaningful revision of our ordinance.
Well
And the
said.
Inspector General's office concurs.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Commissioner Johnson, because that was well put. Yeah, look, this is what, it's not just what this Oversight Commission wants. This is what the public wants. I mean, has anybody read Measure R? You know, it was adopted by the public. They want an effective Oversight Commission. The public does. And I think, isn't that what the board wants? Even the sheriff has said he wants effective oversight. So if he can legally do so, it's just county council just has to say, it's lawful to provide confidential information to the Oversight Commission through its ad hoc committees. Which it is, by the way, in my legal opinion, but the sheriff needs to hear that from county council. Let's move on. Okay, we'll move on with the agenda as well. Okay, so we're now to, have you finished your report?
I'm done. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Ms. Mosley, and thank you for all you do and the staff is doing to help this commission where we are, by the way, we are very shorthanded. There's just no doubt about it. That's partly why we don't have minutes for you today, among other things. It's partly why there's going to be apparently a delay in the annual report for 2025 getting out. Oh, I did mean to ask one question. Don't mean to put Ms. Mosley on the spot. But if there's going to be a delay, when do we expect that there will be a draft annual report for the governance committee to take a look at?
I'll turn it over to Tracy Jordan, our principal staff analyst. Tracy?
Thank you. For the governance report, I don't have an exact timeline at this time, but I will be in communication with the executive director so that we can provide clarification and more information to the ad hoc committee soon.
Okay, but
So-
let me just say notionally though, we would like, and I realize how shorthanded we are, but we would like to see a draft report certainly by the first week of January. I mean, I don't mean January 1, but the end of the first week of January. So if you'd set that as a goal, I'd appreciate it because we actually want to get this out in January. That would be my goal anyway.
So Chair
I
Bonner,
understand your goal, Chair. We also do have the competing timeline of the ad hoc committee for budget. As you may be aware, we are coming along with that time frame of receiving the budget from the Sheriff's Department, which is a very fast-paced time frame. And we will also be preparing for doing a conference sometime within February, and we'll be preparing the report that will be coming before the full commission shortly from the Budget Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, I realize there's a lot going on. That's why we have an executive director to manage staff and to figure out how we're going to get all those things done. But I'll just leave it at that. And I know Ms. Mosley will give it her best effort here to make sure that we are able to do multiple things to move forward. Otherwise, we're just going to get stalled out here. So in any event, okay, so the last item on the reports is the report of the sheriff, Sheriff Luna. I don't see Sheriff Luna here. I don't know who's representing the Sheriff's Department, but somebody is there at the end of the table. Let me ask him or her to introduce themselves. I can't even see you. Who's representing the Sheriff's Department?
Good
Who's
morning.
representing Sheriff Luna at this meeting?
This is Acting Chief Tanya Plunkett. Good morning. Regretfully, Sheriff Luna could not attend due to previous engagements. Therefore, I will provide the update for 2024.
No, you're an acting chief.
Yes,
Well-
sir. Custody Services Division.
Okay, that's pretty far down in the pecking order, isn't it, of the Sheriff's Department, an acting chief? I mean, it seems to me there's the undersheriff, then there's assistant sheriffs, and then they're commanders. No, okay, all right. I knew I'd be corrected by our expert. All right.
It's okay.
Could first of all tell us, I mean, really, I haven't heard, but I'd just like to know, this had to have been long scheduled on the sheriff's agenda, and I realize things come up, but what is it that came up that prevented him from attending our meeting? Yeah.
There is a funeral that many of our executives are attending today, so on behalf of the sheriff's department, we apologize that the sheriff and the assistant sheriffs are not here today. They are attending a funeral.
Okay,
today.
thank you for
So
late.
we apologize on behalf of the sheriff.
No problem. I just appreciate knowing, and I appreciate your telling us because that to me is an understandable reason. That obviously is something that came up that the sheriff couldn't plan for ahead of time. So
Chair,
we understand that. Okay, so thank you.
Chair.
Yeah.
This is Arthur.
Pardon?
I would like to say something. Can I say something real quick?
Wait a minute.
Chair Bonner, can I say something?
Yeah.
I would just like to say, in my opinion, there are people who are here today who also had to attend the funeral of their family. So we should be able to have one executive officer out of all the officers, out of the 8,000 personnel to be able to attend this meeting.
Okay, no comments from, no. Okay. Thank you for the comment. We now have an explanation. I appreciate that. And Assistant Acting Chief Plunkett is going to give the report of the Sheriff's Department on behalf of the sheriff. So go ahead, Chief Plunkett.
Thank you. In 2024, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department achieved significant milestones in public safety, transparency, and community partnership. Key accomplishments included enhanced crime prevention strategies, resulting in a measurable decrease in property and violent crimes rates across the county. The department expanded the use of innovative technology, such as advanced data analytics and body-worn cameras integration to improve accountability and operational efficiency. The department also revamped the complaint and commendation page on the department's website. On the community engagement front, LASD strengthened relationships with residents through several initiatives. The department hosted over 200 community meetings, workshops, and youth programs, fostering dialogue and trust between law enforcement and diverse neighborhoods. Notably, the Center of Policing Equality and DOJ CRS partnership initiatives was rolled out, highlighting a commitment to data transparency and community input in shaping policing practices. Additionally, LASD launched new programs focusing on mental health support, including crisis intervention, training for deputies, and partnerships with mental health professionals to address nonviolent incidents compassionately. Efforts to support underserved communities were also amplified through food distribution drives, school safety campaigns, and cultural outreach events. These accomplishments underscore LASD's dedication to building safer, stronger communities through collaboration, innovation, and accountability. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So that concludes the three reports. Let me ask, by the way, do any of the commissioners have any questions of Chief Plunkett or any other questions of me or Charmaine on our reports? Yes, Commissioner Kennedy.
I have a question for the chief. Thank you for being here. As a working lawyer in court, I just hear constantly that defendants with court cases can't be brought to court or will be brought to court hours late because the sheriff's department only has like 3 working buses or something. I can't believe that that's true. Are you able to comment on that? Because it's creating like havoc in the criminal justice system, and it's been going on for a while now. What's the deal with the buses?
So I understand the frustration. We have been working diligently with our county department in order to get new buses on the line. As a matter of fact, we have one unveiling today. I know that is small on the scale of transporting the number of inmates daily to court. However, we're not just sitting around waiting for the buses to come. Once again, we're working collaboratively with our partners in justice and other county agencies to come up with solutions that would address the problem for court transportation without having to utilize buses.
Well, how many buses are there? Do you know? Is it 3?
We have more than 3. I don't want to give you a number for certain. My last count was 8 working, but once again, we're still working on that, and it could have been more. That was at the time a few months ago. But if you like, we can provide that information through OCP during the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yes,
let's
I
request
think-
that we at least get an update on the difficulties transporting inmates to court, or these are pretrial detainees to court.
Right. I mean, I just think like we should maybe get some specific information about this, because it's a huge issue. These are people who have constitutional rights. and they should be able to attend their hearings timely and consult with their lawyers. And it's been going on so long, that's why I bring it up. It seems like a unaddressed.
What would you suggest? I mean, should we just request that the sheriff have somebody brief this commission at its next meeting, or an ad hoc committee of the commission with respect to what the problem is and what's being done to solve it? If there,
Chair, why don't we ask the person with the most knowledge about this issue to be at our next meeting so we could talk about it, because it's a huge problem in the system.
Okay, let's do that. That's our request, Chief Plunkett, that we would have the also resting Lieutenant Rivers over there, a person knowledgeable about the issue of bus transport, to give us a briefing, and we'll set aside maybe 15 minutes on our agenda at the January meeting
Chair Bonner,
for that. Yes.
if I could also just add to that, as part of that report, it'd be nice to know just what has happened with the continuous budget requests for additions to the bus fleet that seem to just go nowhere. Because Commissioner Kennedy points out an obvious problem, and it has been a problem now for probably 5 or 6 years that there have been requests made. I believe they've been under unmet needs sometimes. And I'm hoping that whoever makes this report can, or I'm asking them to please give us some update on just what have been the budgetary constraints that have caused the Sheriff's Department to find themselves in this position. I have to believe that it's not the sheriff who wants to delay people going to court. However, they are responsible for getting them there. And if they need assistance from the county to make sure there's adequate funding to purchase buses, we need to know if they're hitting some stumbling blocks so we could assist them in unlocking necessary funds to purchase the required buses. Because this is just, I agree with Commissioner Kennedy, this is just absolutely unacceptable. And to think in a county as large as we are, that we have 6 or 8 functioning buses, when at one time I believe we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 buses. So we have a graveyard of buses parked somewhere. And I'm just at a loss to figure out how this could be allowed to happen and for it to continue. So please, as part of the request, I ask them to please address the, if there are some budgetary issues that we can help them with, we'd like to know what those are.
All right, we'll include that. We'll ask that be included in the report by the person most knowledgeable from the Sheriff's Department. Yes, Commissioner Cooper.
Yes, I just need a clarification. Did I understand you to say that the property crime rates have gone down? I believe that is what I said. Yes, across the county, property and violent crime rates across the county. Okay, because I'm looking at this report and it does not separate out property crime. It's just states robbery and burglary. So I'm not sure where those rates fall within this report, because what I hear on the news is saying that property crime is going up. So if we could just get a clarification on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you for the comment. I don't have that information broken out of this report, but once again, we can follow up and provide you with the information through the OCP. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Bonner.
Yes, Commissioner Garcia.
So I just wanted to acknowledge, as a commissioner, my recent attendance at the 4th graduation ceremony for the 5th step down. I know there's a lot going on in the jail, and as we discussed about the numerous oversight bodies or DOJ oversight, that day there was 80 graduates coming from different pods, and they presented their testimonials, and as an oversight commissioner, it was very powerful to see the individuals and hear them sharing, what they experienced and the role that the mental health assistants have helped. In particular, there was recognition given to one of the deputies that has worked in that unit, the captain, and kind of the spearheaded Craig Armstrong, who's still has the ability to work in that step down unit. But also, I think there was important was that it brought forth, the importance of the collaboration with like correctional health services and some of the other community partners. And, given the vast jail network, I think it was a great example of collaboration and actually, and a model that I know it's also in CRDF. So I just wanted to highlight that. And coming from my experience in the jails and accessing or trying to attempt to access mental health programming, and now being a licensed clinician, I hope that, as the work goes in with this population in the jail, that, the expansion that I know the board has authorized or put the motion for it. And so I'm hopeful that for 2025, the expansion will continue and the work will continue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Let me ask, Ms. Jordan, do we have any public comment on the three reports, mine, executive directors, and the sheriff's department?
Yes, we do have public comments in the location as well as online. Our first public comment in this venue will be from Cassandra Hernandez. Okay, looks like you're going to pass. The next public comment will be from Cindy Nunez. You're going to pass. We next have Michelle Infante.
Yeah, I was just asked that excuse me.
Are you going to pass? This is.
No, we're not to the complaint process yet, Michelle. This is just on the reports that executive director, and the sheriff just made, but we are going to get to the complaints process. I will assure you, but we're not there yet. In fact, I'm almost thinking maybe we should take the motion to, one of the most important items on this agenda is the motion to create a complaints ad hoc committee of the commission and discuss that, because I think that's what a lot of people want to talk about. In fact, I think I'm going to exercise the prerogative of the chair and actually move to that next one, and then we'll take public comment on everything, including the creation of the new, if it passes, the new ad hoc committee on complaints. So one of the most important things I think we have on this agenda is the creation of a complaints ad hoc committee for the Civilian Oversight Commission. And let me just, by way of quick background, say that back at our November 21st meeting, Commissioner Callaway suggested that the commission should consider forming an ad hoc committee that would take a hard look at the sheriff's department's processes for handling external complaints. By external complaints, I mean complaints by members of the community, citizens and residents of Los Angeles County that relate to conduct of deputy sheriffs. And it's true that at that meeting and at many meetings of this commission, by the way, not just the last meeting, but many meetings of this commission, we have heard concerns from the community members about their perceptions that the sheriff's department's complaint system is not working. It has failed to address their complaints. Now, we haven't heard from everybody. There may be some satisfied people out there, but we've yet to hear from anybody that's satisfied with the sheriff's department's investigation of external complaints. So we've been told many times by members of the community that the process is not working. And after considering this matter and after discussing it, and I have discussed it with Commissioner Callaway and a few other commissioners and the executive director, I've come to believe, as others have, that such a new ad hoc committee is very much needed, which for short will be called the Complaints Ad Hoc Committee. The reality is, if, as is the case, is currently the case, the Sheriff's Department investigates its own. That's the current case. That's what it does. It is imperative that there be effective oversight and visibility into that process. What was done with the community members, what was done with the community members' complaint? Was it investigated? If it was found valid, what, if any, discipline was imposed? What actions were taken? And to that end, and to address this issue, we have prepared a motion, which is embedded in the agenda, but which I will read for the record. And I'm going to read it for the record because there's going to be one additional sentence added to the proposed motion if it gets, if somebody will move and second it, but I'm going to read the motion first. And the motion, by the way, it's set forth in its entirety in the agenda, except for one sentence that I'm going to add, and I'll tell you when I reach that point. But the motion would be move that the chair of the commission form a new ad hoc committee, spelling error there, to be called the Complaints Ad Hoc Committee, and select commissioners of less than a quorum to serve on this committee. The committee will review, study, analyze, evaluate the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department's policies, procedures, and practices for handling external, that is to say, citizen/resident complaints relating to the conduct of Sheriff's Department personnel, as well as examine the best practices of other law enforcement agencies regarding the handling of external complaints, and recommend any changes in policies and procedures needed to improve the Sheriff's Department complaint process. Now, at that point, if you're reading along with me, there's going to be some added language to the motion, and that is, and I'll state it. Quote, as part of its review, the committee will look at the process for handling citizen/resident complaints holistically to include the current and potential future roles of the Office of Inspector General and the Civilian Oversight Commission in the overall process. A secondary purpose. So that's the added language. And then it continues with the text. After a secondary purpose, the committee will also, as I said after, but it should be as a secondary purpose, the committee will also work with the executive director and staff to develop procedures for logging and tracking of citizen/resident complaints that are formally submitted to the commission. This committee will also work with the staff to enhance messaging regarding the limitations of the commission to acquire information regarding the status and/or disposition of complaints made to the Sheriff's Department. This ad hoc committee is temporary and will be dissolved once the task is completed. So that states the motion. I need to know whether okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second for the motion? Okay, so now we'll open it up for discussion. But I think the first commissioner I'm going to call on is Commissioner Callaway, who proposed essentially the formation of this ad hoc committee at the last meeting. Commissioner Callaway.
Yeah, just my comment is I think that it is very important for every person who has a complaint with the Sheriff's Department to be able to understand that they've been heard, and not only that they've been heard, but the complaint that they made has actually been followed up on, and that we need some type of visibility in order to establish a system that is actually designed to provide trust between the communities and the sheriffs. And if we want to actually do that, then we must have a complaint system that actually feels like it's working.
Well said. Other commissioners who would like to make a comment, ask a question, or discuss? Yep.
I would just note that we've had testimony at the last meeting and the meeting before that about odd communication in follow-up to complaints by people present here with us today who've made repeated visits for family impact statements before this commission, of backdated letters, of things that do not build trust, but in fact sow distrust about evidence or about complaints submitted to the department and communication that's not being made in a timely way, and that in fact seems obfuscatory in the follow-up itself. And we need, as Commissioner Callaway has stated, a system by which to track complaints and to provide some evidence to the complainant that the process is working and that there is going to be communication to look into a follow-up in a timely way on complaints made by the public. I think this is one small step that this commission can take towards improving the customer service experience and to really fulfill our core mission of building trust and accountability.
Pardon, do you have a comment? Yes, Executive Director Mosley.
So I just wanted to say that this commission has been in place since 2016. So I applaud the commission and also community members for who's come to our meetings to move this forward, because civilian oversight is about looking at those complaints that people file and to make sure that those complaints are done fairly and thoroughly, that they're fairly and thoroughly investigated by law enforcement. So thank you, commissioners. Thank you, community members, for bringing this forward. And thank you, Commissioner Callaway, for stepping up and leading this important ad hoc committee.
Let me also announce before that after speaking to Commissioner Callaway, he has graciously agreed to be the lead or the chair of this new ad hoc committee. I will also note that Commissioners Garcia, Johnson, and Harris have expressed interest without any arm twisting whatsoever, have volunteered to serve on this committee. But I want to say that if there are other commissioners who wish to be considered to be on this committee, let me know. Perhaps at the break here would be a good time to let me know before we finalize the committee, because as you know, it has to be, the full committee has to be limited to less than a quorum, so it can't exceed 4 commissioners. But what is certain is that Commissioner Callaway will be the chair of the Complaints Ad Hoc Committee. Now, any other thoughts or comments before we turn to public comment? Yes, Commissioner Cooper.
I just want to echo everything that my fellow commissioners have said about the importance of this committee, because if we continue to not share and be transparent with the public on these complaints and keep using the excuse of privacy, we'll never develop trust. And we have to remember that the police, they're here to serve the public, not do things and hide. Because as family members and mothers, we want to know what happened to our child. And we don't want this vague language that tell us nothing. So we really have to support and make this thing work.
Okay. Yeah, we would expect that at the conclusion, after talking to subject matter experts, really looking at the system, that we fully expect this ad hoc committee, and it won't happen right away because we have to take a good hard look at this, but certainly as a 2025 goal and objective will be a report with recommendations as to how to move forward to improve the Sheriff's Department's complaint processing and to figure out a way where there's some meaningful oversight of that, of their handling of their investigations of their own. Okay, so
Chair
I'm
Bonner?
wondering, thoughts? Yes,
Yeah,
Commissioner
just-
Garcia.
I just wanted to add, I think this is also, along the lines of building trust and transparency. The complaint process is vital for also family members that have loved ones that are in the county jail system, and, ensuring that their loved one is getting the care if there's necessary health or behavioral health access to care. And I think having a complaint process where, not only the community can file complaints, but also, transparency for those that, or a pathway for the community that has loved ones that are incarcerated, and have, a resolution to their concerns when they're trying to advocate for their loved one that's incarcerated.
Good, that's a good point. Although I think the priority focus should be on the external complaints of conduct of deputies vis-a-vis members of the public. But I'm sure the commission will also look into the grievance process within the county jails as well. at some point. In any event, any other thoughts or comments before we turn it now over to public comment, which will include not only the reports, but also the motion that's been seconded to establish this new ad hoc complaints committee. And we need to take public comment, particularly before the commission votes on that motion. So Tracy, maybe you could combine both of those public comment people who have signed up to make public comment on either one or both of those issues.
Thank you. Our first public comment is from Vanessa Perez.
There's a couple of things that I want to say to you guys. The sheriff's department, about the complaint process, the sheriff's department never rolled out the IEB when they beat Joseph. And how is that possible that the IEB didn't come when Joseph looked like this? And this is not to mention the pool of blood that was on the floor of the street. Why wasn't IEB called out for that? And then after Joseph was put in jail, I would call and complain. I know Luis Garcia said something about families having the safety of calling the jails to know that their loved ones are safe. That's not true, because I had a nurse let me know that I was making the situation worse for Joseph while he was in jail. And I've reported that to the OIG's office before, so they know. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Cassandra Hernandez. Cassandra Hernandez. Next, we have Michelle Infante.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michelle Infante. I am with Dignity and Power Now. Community members have long called for greater accountability and transparency in how LA County Sheriff's Department handles their complaint misconduct. These complaints highlight concerns about investigations, use of force, deputy gang, misconduct, jail conditions, mental health, medical, resolutions, and overall a lack of trust in LASD's ability to regulate itself effectively. When complaints are brought to the Civilian Oversight Commission, they are referred to the Office of Inspector General for further inquiry. After referral, the OIG works directly with the complainant and informs the COC staff about what actions were taken. Currently, you're losing precious data by not collecting information from those complaint forms. The COC lacks the authority and resources to independently investigate complaints. It is restricted from assessing confidential information that is crucial to oversight. It cannot directly monitor how complaints are resolved or ensure accountability. Independent legal counsel is very important. As a result, the COC must rely on the OIG, which limits its ability to meet the community's expectations for oversight and transparency. To address these gaps, the COC must continue to pursue changes in Section 3.79 of the County Code that would provide the COC with the authority to assess confidential information from LASD, enable the COC to conduct independent investigations into complaints, and secure additional staffing to handle individualized complaint reviews. These changes would allow the COC to ensure better tracking and resolution and complaints while fostering greater transparency. The current system is a step forward, but fails short of what community expects in terms of oversight and accountability. By empowering the COC with tools and authority needed to address complaints directly, we can create a system that is transparent, effective, and responsive to the public. These reforms are essential for restoring trust and ensuring
Thank you.
that communities it serves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Our next public comment is Cindy Nunez. She's passing. We now will go to online public comments. We will unmute our call-in with 626 prefix. You are unmuted. Caller 626 prefix, you are unmuted. Caller?
Hello. I don't know if this is the time for me to speak or not. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm calling in by phone.
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if this is the time to speak on this or if I wait till the end during public comments, but I do want to say that I think it's very, very important that we are forming another committee for the complaints. And I want to know if community members will be able to participate in that committee.
This is the time for public comment. We will not be providing a response. So please, if you have any additional comments, we'll take your comments.
Okay. So my comment is that I think this is so necessary because my son was the transgender man that was assaulted by an LA County Sheriff's Department back in February of 2023. And yesterday on 12/18, there was a press release from the Justice Department, U.S. Attorney's Office, stating that the LA County Sheriff's Deputy Joseph Benza III agreed to plead guilty to a federal civil rights violation for using excessive force during an assault of a transgender man in retaliation for the victim exercising his First Amendment rights. I think this committee is very important. I tried to reach out to Sheriff Luna and to other people when this first happened. No one contacted me at all. It got a lot of publicity in July of 23 because Carrie Blakinger did an article in the LA Times. It was picked up by all the news media, so it was all over the news. The entire assault of my son by this LA County deputy was recorded, and it was seen all over the news. And when we put in a complaint of excessive force, they investigated themselves and determined that no excessive force was used. So now we've come down to a whole FBI.
Thank you. We will now move on to our last public comment. Paulino Gutron, you are now unmuted. Okay, we will now move on to Jay. You are now unmuted.
I would like to give my condolences to the entire Nunez family. I feel like no one should go or no one should have to go through everything they have been going through. I would like to introduce myself first real quick. I would not give my full name due to how I've been seeing how the officials have been handling the case and due to what I've been reading and seeing on the news and seeing what happened to the witness in this case. My name is Jay. I'm an entrepreneur, business owner, which services the New York City and tri-state area. Even though I'm on the other side of the country, I've still been impacted by the death of Francisco Nunez. Me and Francisco Nunez were friends for quite a while. We had plans on doing business together in California. We were supposed to be business partners on a venture that we will never be able to see flourish due to his death. We had two business plans set in place, from opening up a mobile detailing business and then a mechanic shop, which I had opened here in New Jersey, in the New Jersey area a couple years back. We had plans on contracting with local dealerships and be able to grow the business, both in detailing cars and being able to be their mechanics. These were all ideas from Francisco, who was very ambitious. He wanted to always do right for his kids, especially since he had a newborn on the way. Always had positive thoughts, strong mindset, very determined. At the same time, he was worried about the well-being of his parents, his wife, his children. He had the same ambition I had when I first started. he would have been able to be good for the community and be able to help the community, give back to the community, just like I do here in this area. It sucks that his life was taken the way it was. It's a shame to know that the people that our families are supposed to reach out to, who the community is supposed to trust, are the ones who are killing our future fathers, future entrepreneurs, and business owners. Francisco Nunez was a good man with a good heart, who had plans for his family, who was trying to make his family proud, who was trying to set an example for his children. Pretty much what he was trying to do that show is pretty much that if he can do it, they can too. Again, my condolences to the family. If you guys ever need anything, you could always reach out. To the commissioners, I appreciate the time. I hope you guys can see what I saw. I mean, understand what we all are going through. And my time. Thank you.
Thank you. No further public comments on this agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. All right, so the motion's been read to create a special ad hoc committee, a special complaints ad hoc committee. It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call for a vote. Let's have a roll call vote on this one.
Chair Robert Bonner,
Yes.
Co-Vice Chair Luis S. Garcia,
Yes.
Co-Vice Chair Hans Garcia,
Hans Johnson.
excuse me, Co-Vice Chair Hans Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Arthur Callaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Irma Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Patricia Garcia, Giggins, absent. Commissioner James P. Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamon R. Hicks, absent. Commissioner Sean Kennedy.
Yes.
Chair Bonner, we have a quorum. I turn it back over to you.
Well, I think we passed the motion, didn't we?
We did pass the motion.
And was it unanimous?
It was unanimous.
And I think, what do we have, 7 commissioners here?
We have 7
7-0,
commissioners.
okay. All right, good. So we'll look forward to getting that commission to work, and I know Commissioner Callaway will start on that soon. Let me, before we take our morning break, I just thought maybe we'd start on the next item on the agenda, which is really the centerpiece of today's meeting, which is to discuss both where we stand with respect to what we've been able to accomplish or achieve with respect to the Commission's 2024 strategic plan priorities and goals, which we discussed and set forth back almost a year ago. And then we'll move to the 2025, what we think the priority goals should be for 2025. But let me make just a couple of preliminary comments, and that is, first, we're going to try to take stock of what we've done, but in terms of particularly looking at what we hope to accomplish in 2025, it's just a word of caution, and that is, given our limited staff and resources and time, we need to prioritize. We can't do everything, and we should be selective regarding what our goals are for the next year. Put differently, the commission, working through its ad hoc committees, needs to focus on the big ticket issues, in my view, on systemic issues, ones that really have an impact on members of the public that interact with the Sheriff's Department. And to get things done, to get our goals, at least our goals for policy changes and reforms, this will need to tie our goals to at least one of our ad hoc committees. We did not do that before, but we need to do it for 2025, in my view. So only a few of the goals actually in the 2024 plan are tied to an ad hoc committee. And so if you're looking at the agenda, I'm going to actually turn to start with goal 1.1, which is the elimination of deputy gangs and deputy cliques. We set that as a goal or objective under our strategic plan, and the chair of our ad hoc committee with respect to deputy gangs and deputy cliques and exclusionary subgroups is none other than the former chair, Commissioner Kennedy. And I'm wondering, Chair Kennedy, well, former Chair Kennedy, I should say.
Sean.
Maybe I'm wishful thinking over here, but no, Commissioner Kennedy, if you would perhaps tell us where we are, what we've accomplished in 2024. And, I'm going to then call on each ad hoc committee in 2025 to state their goals and objectives. I realize it's hard to, it will probably get these blurred together, but I'm going to try to kind of keep the discussion separate if I can.
Sure. Obviously, this Commission's ad hoc committee on deputy gangs and cliques has been active for years because there have been deputy gangs within the department for so many years. And going back to Sheriff Peter Pitchess, little to nothing has been done about them from the sheriff and the leadership. We held a series of special hearings on deputy gangs, which has spanned a couple of years. The most recent one being last October, which probed into the creation of a specialized unit to investigate oversight officials after this commission began holding special hearings on deputy gangs. And so we have had some progress. I'm happy to report to our chair. In March of 2023, our special counsel issued a report making recommendations to the sheriff. Obviously, one of the most important recommendations of the special counsel's report was that the sheriff pass a policy to prohibit participation in deputy gangs and cliques. And I think it's important to note that the obligation to pass a policy prohibiting participation in a law enforcement gang is over 3 years old. And so there was a real foot dragging from the sheriff's department leadership on complying with the law. Even then, it took over, I think, about 18 months for Sheriff Luna, who ran on a platform to eliminate deputy gangs, to finally enact a anti-law enforcement gang policy that happened in September. And so we have to celebrate progress where it occurs. So I want to say to our friends from the Sheriff's Department who are representing him today, we're happy that finally an anti-law enforcement gang policy has been passed, but we still have a huge gaping hole because despite the recommendation that the prohibition occur to both deputy gangs or law enforcement gangs and deputy cliques, that part, deputy cliques, was carved out from the policy at the objection of the unions. And Sheriff Luna told us that he needed to basically take this in steps, the first step being the prohibition on deputy gangs as required by state law, and that he would then work on crafting a constitutional prohibition on joining deputy cliques. And we haven't heard much about what's going on that. And I think that for the next year, Mr. Chair, that will be an issue to make sure that we hold the sheriff to his word that occurs as well. And I want to say that I think this is very important because these secret invitation only tattoo groups, whether they meet the definition of a deputy gang or whether they are classified under the preferred sheriff's department euphemism, deputy clique, they provide a permission structure for deputies to valorize violence and unconstitutional policing. In my opinion, and I think there's a lot of evidence from our hearings, the sheriff leadership has tacitly supported that permission structure, even though they are not able to publicly endorse it. And because of that longstanding tradition and I think tacit approval of the secret invitation only tattoo groups under any name, it has caused them to hide the information about the gangs and cliques from this commission, claiming it's all confidential. And so I think the goal or the challenge for the deputy gang and clique ad hoc in 2025 is to try to pry that information out of the department so that we can see what is actually being done to implement the existing policy against deputy gangs and what the sheriff is doing to expand that policy to cover deputy cliques, because these are the gateway, whether they're gangs or cliques, to this permission structure that is then used to create so many terrible uses of force and to kind of poo-poo constitutional policing and kind of sell very aggressive and I think sometimes unconstitutional policing practices through the proliferation of deputy gangs and cliques in the department.
I really appreciate your work on this, and I guess it does glide into 2025, and so you've articulated a couple of things that I think are really important for the deputy gangs, cliques, exclusionary subgroup ad hoc committee to do. First of all, in January, we are going to take stock of the 27 recommendations that have been made to the sheriff to essentially, if they were put into place, would eradicate deputy gangs, deputy cliques, exclusionary subgroups within the sheriff's department. So we're going to discuss that, and that's going to be a goal of the, I think the ad hoc committee is, as Commissioner Kennedy said, is to get A3, which is a ban on deputy cliques, implemented, and other key provisions, recommendations implemented. The second part is seeing that there is implementation of policies once they're put into place, including right now implementation of the policy that does prohibit law enforcement gangs from existing within the department or anybody joining, participating, or soliciting others to join a law enforcement gang. Is it being implemented? How is it being implemented? Who's been investigated? Have there been any investigations and the like? Okay, so those are two key things, but I want to ask you a third thing, this just to put it on the table, and that is we did our last special hearing of the deputy gangs ad hoc committee concerned the what was called the public corruption unit or detail that was set up by former Sheriff Villanueva. It's dissolved now, but I mean it was basically to threaten and intimidate anybody who criticized former Sheriff Villanueva. And we heard from two witnesses. It was a pretty important hearing, I think, and you led that. I appreciate that, Sean. But should we consider calling further witnesses at special hearings for purposes of further shedding light on that truly despicable unit that was set up within the sheriff's department that ostensibly reported, according to the testimony, to the undersheriff Murakami? Or do we, or do you feel that are you satisfied we don't need to do anything further at this point on that issue?
No, I think the answer is that we should continue to probe that issue, because I think it was a really important part of leadership's tacit support or overt support of this deputy gang or deputy clique structure that exists within the department. I think they were retaliating against this commission for asking the hard questions about deputy gangs and cliques. And so I don't have a specific date, Chair, but I think that we should continue the hearing. The two people we heard from, Detective Mark Lilienfeld and particularly
Max Fernandez, Sergeant Fernandez.
Yes, and Sergeant Fernandez, their testimony raised a lot of startling questions. And of course, after the hearing, we heard that Detective Lilienfeld was interjecting Nazi salutes in training programs within the department's homicide unit. That information had been withheld from the commission despite requests, Public Records Act requests prior to the special hearing. And so I think that we should. The date is unknown because obviously we are always struggling with the fact that we no longer have special counsel. And so I think we should leave it
Not
open.
looking for a date now, and
Okay,
just
right.
something that we would attempt to have further hearings and to determine the appropriate witnesses, possibly including Under Sheriff Murakami and others. But the goal will be to have some further hearings into that area. That's all we need.
Yes.
Right.
And I'd just like to note that the value of the hearings is not simply the substance of the hearings themselves. It is the publicity and the recognition by the public that this is ongoing, and the additional evidence that comes forward from readers of local publications based on excellent reporting about such hearings that we call. And that led to disclosures, that led to Lilienfeld being forced out of a job at a local police agency because of the ability of stakeholders to communicate and exert accountability. That doesn't have to come directly from this commission. It comes from the people. It comes from the community. It comes from earned media that is a result of good work by the commission to create forums where accountability can be held. So I just want to thank the reporter for the LA Times who's here with us today, whose reporting was integral to that accountability, and to the members of the public who are part of the circle of accountability that we are doing our best to try to incentivize. So I just want to thank Commissioner Kennedy and thank the work of this commission to create those forums that generate the earned media, that create the accountability.
Yeah, we've got to make sure it never happens again, because truly was what was set up. By the way, it is dissolved now. It's not currently operating, but still it needs to be exposed. And Commissioner Kennedy, thank you for making sure we follow through and up on that in the for the 2025 strategic plans and goals. Any other further comments, or I'll turn to my report on the next. By the way, if you're on the agenda, I'm looking at that was the report of the Deputy Gangs ad hoc, and if you have the strategic goals, actually that was 1.1. The second strategic goal and objective was the review of the Sheriff's Department's discipline process to ensure that fair and accountable practices are in place, and that the discipline process is fixed so that it's both fair, fast, and effective. Since I'm the chair of that committee, I'm going to give a brief report, and it will be brief. Just to say that the ad hoc committee had at least a half a dozen or more meetings in 2024, and it interviewed at those meetings. Principally, the principal purpose, other than reviewing documents and some organizational purposes, was to interview the persons most knowledgeable in the Sheriff's Department. We interviewed a representative from ALADS. We interviewed any number of subject matter experts, including Barney Malikian, former chief of police and I think Santa Barbara and Pasadena. In any event, number of subject matter experts. The long and short of it, though, is that the end goal, we pretty much have in mind what the report should look like and what our recommendations will be, subject to a final meeting of the ad hoc committee, which will have to take place next year. So one of the goals next year will, and hopefully in the first quarter actually of next year, will be to get out to this commission, for the discipline ad hoc committee to get to the commission a report and recommendations for reform of the discipline process. And we hope to do that in the first quarter of 2025. So that's the report on that. I see it's about 10:42. The next report out would be on strategic goal 1.3, which is evaluation of the county jail's compliance with PREA. And I'm willing to take a break now, unless Commissioner Cooper, you want to go forward? let's take our morning break and let's resume at promptly at 11 o'clock a.m. So we'll stand and break. Thank you. We'll stand in recess, excuse me.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go outside. Go outside. So you can hear me.
Just doing a sound check, Ed, as long as you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Harris.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hans Johnson, calling Commissioner Hans Johnson.
I'm sure. I consider you an expert. I just want to say that.
All right, let's come to order. Let's come to order. We're going to resume the Civilian Oversight Commission's hearing, and the next on the agenda is going to be a report from the chair of the PREA Ad Hoc Committee, Commissioner Cooper, Irma Cooper. She took over that committee from Patty Giggins during 2024, but Patty, I guess Patty is not here. So you have the ball, Commissioner Cooper, to give us what you think the PREA Ad Hoc has accomplished, and probably talk a little bit about what the goals would be for 2025.
All right, the PREA stands for Prison Rape Elimination Act. So in the past, the committee's role was to evaluate whether and to what extent sexual assaults and rapes were occurring in LA County correctional system, and to work collaboratively with the county council coordination to make sure that PREA compliance implementation team to identify steps required to achieve compliance. However, more recently, the PREA Ad Hoc Committee's role has been to complete the commission's response to the Board of Supervisors, which happened March the 19th, 2024, the motion on behalf of the commission. The Ad Hoc Committee was responsible for the 2024 Strategic Plan Goal number 1, objective, and number 3, which was to evaluate LSSD jails compliance with PREA. As part of our efforts, the Ad Hoc Committee has heard from stakeholders at the Commission's April the 18th, 2024 meeting after the educational presentation on PREA. We also requested and received information from LASD to consider for the development of a report which reform recommendations. The Ad Hoc Committee has met our 2024 goals and objectives as stated. However, it is anticipated the development report back to the board will be placed on the January 2025 calendar. The commission's agenda to be discussed and for the next steps of potentially being forwarded to the board. And that is the end of my report unless you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Cooper. The next.
I do just want to make a
go
note.
ahead,
As a member of the PREA Ad Hoc Committee, and especially in light of Commissioner Giggins' long-term advocacy in this area and her not being here today, and the context that we are operating in trying to educate and elevate respect and understanding of the problem of prison rape, I do want to note that the incoming president in recent days has continued to make remarks about prison rape as a legitimate form of coercion. And I want to read from the remarks of the president-elect saying that you can use prison rape as a form of coercion to get information from reporters. What? You get information very easily, said Donald Trump. You tell the reporter, who is it? And the reporter will either tell you or not. And if the reporter doesn't want to tell you, it's bye-bye. The reporter goes to jail. And when the reporter learns that he's going to be married in 2 days to a certain prisoner that's extremely strong, tough, and mean, he will say, he or she, I'm going to give you the information. Here's the leaker. Get me the hell out of here. And I just want to note that our work for civilian oversight of law enforcement and to end prison rape gets harder when we have people in positions of authority who use it as a trivialization and whose remarks show contempt and disrespect for the law and for conditions in confinement around prison rape. I just want to make that note for the record and to thank the commissioners who serve on this committee, because our work is all the more important.
The record will so note. So I'm going to turn next to the Use of Force Ad Hoc Committee, and I'm looking at the 2024 strategic plan, but specifically goal 1 for number 4, which is decrease the number of lethal uses of force of the by the Sheriff's Department. And Sean Kennedy also chairs the Use of Force Ad Hoc Committee. So Sean, could you maybe tell us where we are on that within 2024 and perhaps your vision for the goals for this ad hoc committee in 2025?
Yes, I'm sorry to say, Mr. Chair, that I think that we're behind the curve. I mean, our goal was to study uses of force and the current sheriff policies and put out a report and make recommendations to reduce the use of force, and we didn't do that. Now, a big part of why we didn't do that is we have been making requests for information, and I've been making Public Record Act requests for the same information regarding really troubling uses of force, including the one that was discussed by the caller this morning about a young trans man who was pinned down and beat up by Deputy Joseph Benza from the Norwalk office for really no reason at all. And then it was lied about and covered up by multiple officers, 3 sergeants and 4 other deputies, resulting in a federal indictment that we heard about yesterday. That use of force went through the system and was approved as a proper use of force. And of course, before this commission, we've heard about so many other uses of force that prompt the same question. So I think at this point, the use of force ad hoc committee needs to adopt take a page from the deputy gang ad hoc committee and open up special hearings focusing on use of force so that we can get the information that we haven't been able to get through requests for information. And so while I think we did not meet our 2024 goals, my pledge is that we tackle this in 2025 and hold public hearings and put out a report regarding uses of force, because we're hearing about so many troubling ones, many of which are deemed proper. And even Commissioner Harris, who's a longtime former sheriff, scratches his head. We can't understand why, how that could be in policy. And so that's our goal, an admission that we didn't meet our goal this year, and a pledge to really tackle this in 2025. It will be difficult to do without the cooperation of the department, which, despite the enactment of SB 1421, denies all our requests for information, but we'll give it a try.
All right, thanks for that report. Let me start off by saying that in light of the guilty plea, as I understand it, as I'm basing this on a news release, but that was put out by the United States Attorney's Office, I believe yesterday or recently.
Yes.
Just reading the release and the details of the guilty plea suggests, if nothing, and I realize that this person who has just pleaded guilty you would think he would be terminated from the department. I'd like to make sure that's happened.
Yes.
It has happened?
It was confirmed by the sheriff in remarks yesterday.
Okay, right. I suppose in light of that, there's no reason to ask the Sheriff's Department to revisit the determination by the Sheriff's Department itself that that was a in policy use of force. But it just troubles me that apparently was the finding that was made, and clearly it's inconsistent with the facts that have now been revealed. I'll leave it at that as a comment rather than a request at this point. But I would, let's put down that the use of force ad hoc committee will have one or more, let's not specify the number, special hearings regarding use of force. And that will be whether the Sheriff's Department is essentially complying with its own policies with respect to use of force, including its new policies with respect to the issues of escalation, the duty to intervene, and so forth. Those policy provisions. So we'll put it down at least for one or more hearings as the goal for 2025. But let me, by the way, any other discussion or comments by any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Callaway.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure. So this case that we're talking about right now, that there was a conviction, that the case is actually closed, right? Like it's a conviction, case is closed.
You mean the case we were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, apparently it was closed with no finding. The finding was it was a within policy use of force.
No, but that he was guilty of the use of force even after the finding was that there wasn't any use of force,
Not
right?
only guilty, he pleaded guilty.
Yeah, I'm good with that. But I'm saying now that the case is closed, wouldn't that be the perfect situation because it's not confidential anymore? For us to actually do a forensics on how that could actually possibly happen?
One would
like
think.
that. I like it. It's a closed case, so we cannot be denied access on the grounds that it's an open investigation. Yeah, why don't we? Well, let's do. By the way, I'll work with Sean on that, but let's do a request to review the files and records that relate to the findings that were made with respect.
They've
to
been
that use of
using the
force case.
Heisman and stiff arming us based on that one issue that it's an open investigation. Now we got a closed one that has been verified.
You
that
agree?
they missed it.
Should we start there?
I would say so.
I think so. I mean, as recently as a couple weeks ago, the sheriff's office was not releasing information. They may say because there are 3 unnamed sergeants and 4 unnamed deputies who apparently were a member of a conspiracy to help Deputy Benza lie and cover up his improper use of force, that we can't receive it. But I think we should start there and try.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have every expectation if we do a request for review that they will deny it based upon the grounds that even an ad hoc committee is not entitled to get confidential information. So we're back in square one until really we get the Board of Supervisors to act and enact that specific provision of the 3.79 revisions, which is 3.79.035, which would specifically authorize us to get access to confidential information. Yes. Yeah. Commissioner Harris.
I don't want this commission to lose sight of the fact that this is almost the identical issue as with the Perez family, where we have serious use of force, case is closed, it was deemed an appropriate use of force, and yet this commissioner still has a whole lot of questions about whether that was legitimately reviewed. And I can't make a determination one way or the other, nor can anyone else up here, because we don't have access to the complete use of force package. We've been given a copy of the use of force package, and over 50% of the pages are totally redacted. Well, that's not adequate for review. So if we are going to be making requests, I think we need to add the Perez case to that as another example of why we need to have access to records so we can provide adequate oversight.
Yep. Okay, that's a good point, and let's do that. We can get that issued forthwith, or at least within the next week or so. Well, if Tracy, no, I'm kidding. We'll get that done. We'll get a request to review in, and and we'll move forward from there. But it does illustrate, as Commissioner Harris says, it illustrates the fundamental problem with performing effective oversight, where we can't have access to even a closed investigation. So we're going to make a maximal effort here to see if we can't break through that problem. The next, if I could move on, we've got the Governance Ad Hoc Committee, and that's the only other ad hoc committee that has any goals or objectives in the 2024 strategic plan and priorities. But those are goals that are set forth in Goal 2, Sub 1 and 2. And basically, those are, one was create rules, procedures to enhance the effectiveness of the commission. That's Goal 2, Objective 1, and then Goal 2, Objective 2 is gain ability to allow commissioners access to confidential Sheriff's Department documents and information. Oh, amazing, we're back to that. So let me just say we have covered a lot of this, but I chair the Governance Ad Hoc Committee, and as I think certainly every member of the commission knows, and I think most members of the public know, the Governance Ad Hoc Committee drafted revisions to Chapter 3.79 of the County Code and presented them to the full commission, which approved them and directed the chair and the executive director to transmit them to the Board of Supervisors and urged the board to make the proposed revisions. So we've kind of covered that. We've done all of that, by the way, in 2024. In fact, that transmittal took place, as I mentioned earlier, in September of this year to the Board of Supervisors through the executive officer for the board, Mr. Yen. Since then, things have gotten bogged down, and I'll just say that we need, and I'm talking about the entire Oversight Commission, needs to engage in this issue of these proposed 3.79 revisions if we're going to make them happen. But working with the executive director and her staff, that'll be a really, I think, perhaps the biggest goal this commission is going to have for 2025 is getting the revisions to our ordinance adopted by the Board of Supervisors. Huge goal. We need to make it happen. But I will add one other objective for 2025, maybe, well, one other, and that is by the end of the year, working with the executive director, the governance committee will hope to have a manual of internal operations for the Civilian Oversight Commission. It's not a front burner issue, but it's something that we need to get done. It would just be our internal procedures for issuing subpoenas, for training new commissioners, and a host of other internal issues. So we'll work to get that, although that's not a near-term goal, but sometime in 2025. Lastly, we do need at some point to update the commission's handbook. I'm not going to make that a goal for 2025 because I think we have enough priority goals. So maybe that'll be a goal for 2026. But the commissioner's handbook, for those of you who even remember what it is, basically sets forth, you should know this, by the way, it sets forth our conflict of interest policies. It's the main purpose of the handbook. But we ought to take a look at that and update it. But let's, I'm not proposing that that be a priority goal for 2025. So none of the, okay, so now we've talked about the 2024 strategic plan, except for all those other goals that I cannot tie to any ad hoc committee. And Charmaine has talked about, and rest of them, really, I was going to ask the executive director to go through any or all of the other goals and objectives that are in this, but I think you actually did a lot of this in your executive director report. But let me just call upon Charmaine to add whatever you want to add at this point in terms of what we've accomplished under the 2024 strategic plan and goals that were overseen by the executive director and your staff.
Okay, and thank you, Chair Bonner. I want to go back to the first goal and its item or objective number 5. This is the goal where we wanted to identify training opportunities for staff and commissioners and provide information on LASD's operations and policies. I think we've done a lot when it comes to this area. We're going to most likely do more. We did offer information and training on LASD's operations, policies, and initiatives. We also participated in ride-alongs and jail visits, attendance at the NACO conference. We had several commissioners and myself and Our deputy executive director attend the NACO conferences. There's been numerous webinars that's been offered to the commissioners and staff, so we've been participating in those webinars. And there are other trainings also that we can identify and share with the commissioners and staff. Also, the Brown Act training. The Brown Act training, I believe there is a video, or there is something that's offered by Committee Book, Tracy, is that the name? Committee Book?
And services, commission
Okay.
services.
Okay, so Commission Services offers the Brown Act training to new commissioners. Also, our county council liaison will be also offering the training to Commissioner Callaway. And I think that is, and also we do have a new commissioner training program / schedule that was created. And I'll be still working on, hopefully in 2025, to put together a ongoing commissioner training for all of our commissioners as well.
Okay. Are there any other the goals and objectives that you wanted to comment on, Ms. Mosley? I think you covered a lot of this within your report, but maybe not all of it.
So goal 2, did we get to goal 2?
We did 1 and 2 of goal 2, and
Okay.
there's 3, 4, and 5. 1 and 3 is strengthen the partnership with the Office of Inspector General. Let me just say that that's a continuing goal. We had a really great meeting with Inspector General Huntsman recently, and we want to continue to strengthen our relationship with the Inspector General's office, so that'll be a continuing goal. Monitoring, the next goal 4 is monitoring Sheriff's Department compliance with the Public Record Act. I don't know which ad hoc committee should undertake that, assuming that we want to make that a goal for 2025.
Chair Bonner.
Yep.
Can we go back to the 3?
To 3?
Objective 3, strengthen the
Strengthen the
partnership. 'Cause
partnership with the inspector. Yeah, go ahead.
There's some initiatives to submit a letter to the California Attorney General requesting their investigation.
Well, that's been
That's
done.
done, so we
That's
can
done. I
cross
mean,
that out.
But really, Inspector General has been exonerated by the California Attorney General's office, or do we need to send further letters to the Mr. Bonta?
Well,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. but-
officially, I have been exonerated, but now Diana Turan is in the crosshairs for for basically practicing oversight. So I'm not sure that additional requests for Attorney General opinions or letters aren't appropriate. But as to that criminal case that Villanueva sent up, yeah, that one has been closed.
Yeah,
So the second one is fine?
We're
Wanna delete that
not
one?
even proceeding that way.
Okay.
Okay, so
You can
on
delete
that
it.
4 is monitor Sheriff's Department compliance with the PRA. You know, look, we don't want to depend on the PRA, but but the Sheriff's Department ought to be complying with the exemptions to the PRA, SB 1421 and so on. Is this something that the commission wants to follow up on? And if so, I need some we'd have to tie this to an ad hoc committee or it's not going to get done. Do you have it, Sean?
I think the use of force investigation or, exploring those issues is deeply related to PRA compliance. So why don't we put that under the umbrella of the use of force ad hoc?
Okay, we'll add that to a 2025 objective. And we filled the vacancy on the commission, so that's objective 5. So the question is now, are there any others under goal 3? Maintain an updated commission calendar. That's a continuing goal of staff. And increase 2 is increase community meeting virtually and throughout the county. This is worthy of discussion, and I'm just going to refer this to the staff to give us some further update on what is going to be our outreach this year. First of all, we already have the schedule of our regular public hearings, our regular monthly public hearings. We were planning some town halls starting with East LA. We're going to have at least, according to Mr. Flores and our executive director, we're going to have at least 4 other town halls, and we have tentative locations for those. There's an issue of whether or not particularly ad hoc committees might be able to use at certain occasions virtual meetings, so there could be greater participation when that makes sense for the ad hoc to have an agendized kind of a there are things that need to be thought through here, and I don't know how to state those as what do you think the policy, the objective should be for 2025?
So I'm going to
Charmaine?
turn it over to Tracy Jordan, because in the past, the commission has been holding numerous mini virtual conferences or meetings where they've invited various partners to attend, and those meetings were open to the public. I think also some of those topics that were identified were led by some of our ad hoc committee chairs. So,
Yeah, but before
Tracy?
Tracy reports, and I've been around this commission for 8 years now. It's not numerous. We've done a few of them, and they've been set up by staff. And I just think they ought to be, if we're going to use a virtual kind of conference setup, it should be in coordination with the chair of an ad hoc committee, so we have an actual purpose what we're for these virtuals. But we did one. I know Commissioner Garcia did one, and I think earlier this year, and I believe we also did another one last year. But I would say they're numerous, and actually, I don't know how effective they are and how useful they are. So with that in mind, though, let's hear from Ms. Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I have been personally myself with the commission as well, almost 8 years, since February of 2017. So as far as working with the commission and the development of our town halls and what we call our mini conferences, staff have done what we consider various types of research as well as communication with individuals to determine what are some of the key issues that community members feel are important to them with what is going on. We have also communicated with the justice deputies for each supervisorial district to determine what they are hearing from their constituents are the top concerns going on in their supervisorial districts, so that we would know what we should actually develop these town halls and mini conferences as far as the themes and the development of those topics. Once we would do that, we would in turn in the operation conduct research to determine who those subject matter experts were in those particular areas. We would go from there and have a meeting within the operation and determine within our commission, do we have ad hoc committees that are associated with these various issues that the community has been impacted by? If we did have an existing ad hoc committee, we reached out to that ad hoc committee to determine if one of those commissioners wanted to participate in or moderate and lead that particular mini conference, that town hall. And there are various colleagues of yours, Chair, that may be able to speak to that today. Some of them have participated in various mini conferences, being the budget, being related to mental health and law enforcement, suicide prevention, various topics related to school resource deputies, other topics associated with you name it, dating back to 2017. So we've been at this for quite some time, associated with even PREA as recently as earlier this year. So we have been working with the ad hoc committees and the chairs, and they have been moderating. They have been conducting research analysis and developing recommendations that have come before the full commission after the mini conferences as well. And looking at Commissioner Cooper, she was highly involved with the street takeover one, which is an issue that we heard from a number of community members saying that in the city of Compton, South LA, these street takeovers were impacting them. We had emails coming in as well as community members coming before this very body saying that these events or incidents were impacting them. So those are some of the things that as staff we did. Thank
Here's
you.
my concern, and that is the staff is already straining at the bit to support the ad hoc committees. We don't have a lot of staff here. It's just a prioritization thing. But I would say just going forward, if the staff or the executive director wants to recommend that we have a mini conference on a certain topic or another, that we at least have some discussion through the governance ad hoc committee as to what that is and how it's going to, advance the cause here, and how we can do it consistent with all the other activities that the staff needs to undertake to support the commission.
So as far as staffing goes, we are limited as far as our staff analysts, but we do have a community engagement coordinator as well as our comms manager, who I believe has the capability to support the commission in moving forward some of our town halls and also these mini virtual conferences as well.
This really segues into the other ad hoc committees that I haven't called on yet because they didn't have any goals or objectives that were tied into our 2024 strategic plan. Five of our ad hocs did, but 4 of them that existed at the time did not have any goals and objectives that were embedded in the 2024 strategic plan. And we need to change that. We need to rectify that. Because if there isn't a goal or objective for at least one important priority goal or objective for an ad hoc committee, we probably don't need that ad hoc committee. So I would note that in our 2025 plan and beyond, we should make sure that each ad hoc committee has at least one, if not more than one priority goal and objective that it intends to accomplish. And if you can't state one, then again, we'll take a look at what the rationale for the ad hoc committee is. I also recommend that each chair of each one of our ad hoc committees, and we now have 11 ad hoc committees because we've added jail staffing and the complaints ad hoc. But I'm recommending that each chair set at least one recurrent monthly meeting. Okay. And you need to work with the staff, whoever the staffer is assigned to that, but you need to talk to the other members of the committee, set one recurrent monthly meeting at a specific date and time that's convenient to the other members of that ad hoc committee. And then you have the staff person a week before contact you and set some sort of an agenda, even if that's just we're going to interview subject matter expert so-and-so, or we're going to discuss potential policies changes for the sheriff's department, whatever it is, have some kind of an agenda so that it's a meaningful discussion. So I'm going to ask you, actually at the next meeting, I'm going to ask every chair of every ad hoc to at least let me know whether you have been able to establish a regular schedule of meetings with the ad hoc, with the members of your ad hoc committee. Because I'm just going to tell you, if we do this, by the way, if there's nothing to discuss, cancel the meeting, but have a meeting set. If we do this, it will energize this commission and we will accomplish a great deal to improve the sheriff's department and its interactions with the public. So that's why the ad hoc committees are so important. They've been important to this commission in terms of every major important recommendation we've made, and quite a number of which we've been able to get implemented. So that's the ad hoc process, Tracy. That's what I'm talking about. I've talked to Charmaine about it, but that's we need the support for these ad hoc committees. So if I can see right now, we just formed a complaints ad hoc committee. Of course, we're going to have a virtual mini meeting. Well, assuming that Commissioner Callaway thinks it's an idea and it helps the formulation of policies and goals of that commission. Of course, we're going to have.
I wholeheartedly agree.
That's a mini conference, but we need to. It needs to be directed through the chair of the ad hoc committee. Is what I'm trying to say here. Excuse me, Arthur. Commissioner Callaway, I interrupted you. Go ahead, sir.
I would just say I agree. There will be definitely town halls about the complaint system, and definitely a way to actually make sure that we are following up on these complaints. That's really what I want to see the biggest change to be.
There could be targeted town hall meetings, or they could be many virtual conferences, either whichever best suits the purpose. Yes, Commissioner Cooper.
Oh, I just wanted to state, follow up to what Tracy was saying, because we did have several of those many conferences that I participated in. The budgeting, I felt, was very, very instrumental in a learning process in terms of what goes on with the budget. I was not the lead of the budget ad hoc, but I was a member of that team. And having all those experts come and give a very detailed instructions about what was going on with the budget and allowing the members to ask questions. And they were very open about answering questions concerning the county budget. I also participated in the school resource mini conference that we had, which was very instrumental because we had several of the supervisors and the principals at that meeting giving us information, and to learn that within the county, there's several different ways that the schools use the resource deputies. So it was very interesting. It was very helpful. Ad hoc members and chairs were very involved in these meetings. So I just want to stress that we have been doing it, and they have been very instrumental, and commissioners have worked very well with Tracy and other staff that help put together these meetings.
Yeah, that's good to have it. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying let's use them to advance our priority goals. And that is through ad hoc committees mainly, is how we do that. So this is a good segue, because the next thing I was going to do was to call on the ad hoc committee chairs that haven't spoken yet about what they do plan for 2025, because they had nothing on the 2024 strategic plan. But they could also report a little bit on what they accomplished in 2024, but particularly focus on priorities. And I would start with the newly reconstituted budget committee for FY 2025-2026. We had one that JP Harris chairs. Tell us a little bit about what you think the ad hoc accomplished in 2024, and what do you envision? What's the process for 2025?
Well, I'm going to defer to what Commissioner Cooper just said. We obviously did an awesome job. I'm glad you appreciated it. It was a lot of work. We're kind of taking a little different tack this year. However, we're going to be asking the department to come present to us the ad hoc, not at a public meeting initially, what their budget is, what the priorities are, so then we can have a look at that, and then we will convene a public session where we can ask them questions, and the public can also engage with them to find out just what the priorities are for the department, how they align with what we think the priorities are for the department. Hopefully those two things will be in alignment, but we may find some areas that there's some divergence. I know this whole issue of the buses, it just came up here recently, that obviously we're going to take a good hard look at that, and historically how it came to be where it is today. If there are areas similar to that maybe haven't not yet risen to the level of an emergency, that we can maybe cut those things off and see if we can't get some budget support for those areas that we think definitely need some attention. I know custody is always a big issue, and looking at where are there areas in custody that we can improve operations. It isn't always about money, but money is, of course, if you're not putting any emphasis on it with dollars and cents, and you're probably not putting any emphasis on it, period. So that's another area we're going to be looking at.
What about just for 2025, what's the timeline? When do we have to jump into this to have some impact on what we think are the budget priorities?
Well, we're going to be having our first meeting in hopefully the first part of January. We've got some time yet. The budget process although the budget process is ongoing, it never really stops in the Sheriff's Department. From the moment a budget is adopted, they're already looking at making modifications come October, and then by the time October is done and you have a set budget for the following year, you're already looking at what you're going to do the year after that. So it really is, there's never a sunset, if you will, in the budget process. But we hope to, like I say, this year, we want to have a chance to look at what the sheriffs, what they think the priorities are, and then we will find out if they align with what we think our priorities should be. Then we'll engage the public in either a virtual town hall or maybe a town hall, and be able to have them ask the questions that they want to have answered.
And at some point in this process, you'll engage the full commission on the priorities. that
Absolutely.
The
I
budget
mean,
committee thinks that.
Yeah,
we should
ultimately,
be-
we will
should
make
be pushing.
recommendation. We'll make recommendation to the department, and we'll put we want to put the commission's muscle behind those recommendations.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Let me turn to the Quality of Life Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Garcia. What do you see as the accomplishments for 2024, and what do you visualize as the priorities for that ad hoc committee going forward into 2025?
In terms of accomplishments, I know we are still working on finalizing the law enforcement mental health report, and so that's ongoing. For 2025, the Quality of Life Ad Hoc Committee's role will be to identify potential channels of accountability and transparency involving the Sheriff's Department's presence and responsiveness in the community and with stakeholders that will improve the quality of life for LA County residents. And the ad hoc will hear from subject matter experts from the LASD, moderating commission mini conference sessions related to quality of life issues, and present reports to the full commission. And our potential goals and objectives for 2025 of interest for the ad hoc committee include, but are not limited to, advocate for policy updates that encourage fair and unbiased policing and ensuring safety of all parties. An objective would be increase awareness of quality of life issues involving public safety in LA County. And an initiative would be schedule an educational presentation at a commission meeting with LASD and other quality of life subject matter experts. And then a second objective would be review quality of life policy. And then an initiative will be to conduct research, review, and an analysis of LASD quality of life processes.
Well, I missed a part of that. What was the public processes?
Conduct research, review, and analysis of LASD quality of life processes.
Thank you.
And then the initiative would be hear from stakeholders in the community. And then another final initiative would be develop a report with recommendations. So that's what.
It sounds like a pretty full plate you've got there, but what about the law enforcement mental health report and any recommendations? What's realistic to expect in terms of when you might be able to submit that to the full commission?
Realistically, I think probably by the end of January, we're just kind of finalizing some final edits and footnotes.
Okay.
And
so
as
possibly
such.
we could possibly put it on for the February hearing.
Yeah, February would be.
Thank you for your service as chair of that commission, Luis. Anything further on that, or it sounds like you covered the terrain?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So Hans, Commissioner Johnson heads the technology committee, and we haven't heard from it because there was nothing in the 2024 strategic plan and priorities that had anything to do with technology, but it actually has done some things in 2024 that I'm aware of. Why don't you report on that, and then what do you see for 2025?
Yes, the Technology Ad Hoc Committee did prepare reports, I think just under the wire in 2023, about the use of drones by the Sheriff's Department and on the use of tasers and the expectation that the department will be upgrading its use of tasers to a more modern device shortly, which I believe is ongoing. But in 2025, we are looking at a review or revisiting the topic of drones and any MOUs between the department and any of their outside agencies to ensure compliance with the standards that we've outlined, as well as federal standards about use of drone technology. And we're also looking at artificial intelligence and not only use of AI by the department, but also in ways that AI can be useful to us as oversight officials in detecting patterns and problems in the administration of public safety by the department. One other item that I think is germane to our discussion here and at a prior pair of meetings about the LASD budget involves the technology used in the bus fleets by the Sheriff's Department. We raised questions at the review of the budget for 2024 about efforts to shift reliance on diesel burning trucks and vans and buses by the department to more modern, less polluting, less contaminating options, and at the inefficiency in the bus transit and court service transit by the department. So if that is something that the technology ad hoc can assist with in looking at less polluting options, which the Sheriff's Department's own representatives committed to doing in partnership with us, but which we haven't seen progress on in the last year, we will take on that third item. And I would just note that in terms of the core goals and strategic priorities for the commission, especially as it relates to AI, it does relate to fair and accountable practices for discipline, and it relates to the identifying training opportunities for staff and commissioners in dealing with patterns or things that crop up involving technology, and the ways that the department's own operations can be shifted, perhaps in partnership or with guidance from this commission.
Yeah, that's a lot. We have one other ad hoc committee that did not have a specific priority goal or objective, and that was conditions of confinement, I guess, right? And Commissioner Cooper leads that committee. What do you see as the accomplishments, and what should be the priority goals for conditions of confinement in 2025?
Potential goals and objectives for 2025 of interest for our ad hoc committee includes, but are not limited to advocate for the policy updates that encourage fair and unbiased policing and ensure the safety of all parties associated with jail facilities. Objective 1 is to increase the transparency of LASD policies, implementation, and revision date availability. Request information and ongoing updates from LASD on the status of including implementation and revision dates on policies in LASD policy PAR system. Also to review public facility access, conduct research, review, and analysis of the jail public tours access, conduct research and review analysis of the jail incarcerated persons visitors access, and hear from the stakeholders, and then develop a report with recommendations. Review the jail inspections and corrective action process. Continue to work with the Civil Brand Commission for institutional inspections and have meetings with them. Request representation of the Office of Inspector General to attend some of our ad hoc meetings and to collaborate, and conduct research and review and analysis of jail inspections and corrective action plans to make sure they are carried out, and to develop a report with our recommendations.
All right, thank you for that overview. And I think for purposes of processing and listening to the various leads for the ad hoc committees, that the executive director working with the governance committee is going to draft up the 2025 strategic plan priorities and objectives, and we'll present that to the full commission at the January meeting. So we're making good notes here of the various priorities. We may have a few questions as we go along, but that sounds good. Now I want to call on the executive director. I want her to the extent she hasn't done so already, articulate what her goals and objectives are for 2025. And also, I know from talking to our executive director, she wants to add a fourth goal, which has to do with internal operations. So I want you to discuss that as well. But Other than the goal, by the way, and you do have a strategic goal to support, use the staff as effectively as possible, our limited staff, to support the ad hoc committees in this commission. That's obviously your priority goal and objective as executive director. But other than that goal and objective for 2025, what are there anything specifically we should include in our strategic plan for 2025? And then comment on that fourth goal.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bonner. And I thought it was important that we added, or for the commission to consider adding this fourth goal to focus on the sustainability of this commission by improving and also streamlining our work. I did have a PowerPoint, but I guess it's not up.
So can you put up the PowerPoint that was prepared?
It's
There
fine.
we go.
So the first two objectives I have, it falls under the new complaint ad hoc committee to obtain a complaint process for the commission. And there's two initiatives also to work with staff to research, gather best practices, develop process, and submit proposals to the commission, and also to create the complaint process for citizens, residents, and I would say community members, instead of using citizens and residents, to file complaints of alleged misconduct. The second one would be to ensure accountability of complaints filed with COC, and those listed the initiatives also, which is research best practices for complaint forms, work with county IT to create an online complaint form, which I already mentioned earlier today, and also to create that database and dashboard for complaint data and tracking purposes. We already started those, so that's in the works. And the third objective is to improve internal operations and procedures of COC. And this is really for the sustainability of our commission, obtaining essential staff, being able to assess COC's staffing needs and monitor the status of our budget requests. Being able to also identify and develop budget requests in October 2025. That's something that we're looking forward to. I know the county also is looking at restraints on their budget as we're continuing to move forward. And then the fourth initiative is to assess the use of AI, artificial intelligence, for report summaries. And that would really help out our analysts, especially since we're limited. I know we request a lot of information from LASD, and that information is sometimes given to our analysts for them to summarize, and it takes a lot. We have a lot of ad hocs. We have at least 10 to 11 ad hocs. So, that would be also the initiative. The use of AI is also an initiative under the executive office's strategic plan as well. The fifth initiative is to proactively request training from LASD, especially on navigating their procedure, policies, and directives online. That online manual, I know I tried to navigate it. I know OCP staff has tried to help me and has given me the links, but it can be very difficult. Even like using the search, if you don't know the correct terminology or text to use, it can be difficult to find the correct policy that you're looking for. So for us to be able to get some type of training on how to navigate LASD's manual online, that would be great. And also for us to be proactive as far as learning. Maybe this is something that maybe OCP staff or some of the SMEs can do, scheduled training for our commissioners as well as staff, so we can be able to learn the policies and procedures that are commonly used by LASD and community members to look at complaints. I think that's important too. One of the things that I noticed coming in from the outside is that when an issue come up, we sort of like search for the policies after the fact, right? So it's sort of like reactive instead of us being proactive. So that's one of my initiatives, to try to gather this training for all of us. And also assess the requests for information from LASD. So I know that some of the things that in our meetings with the sheriff is like, there's a lot of information that's being requested from our oversight bodies. And I would say that the information that's being requested is because we don't have effective civilian oversight here in LA County. We have numerous oversight models, but we can't access that information. I haven't seen this before. It is a lot of information that we are requesting. So how can we work collaboratively to limit the information that we're requesting, which can be done via training? There was a training that we did also sometime this year that was open to our commissioners, the K-9 training. I think that was a wealth of information, and staff also attended as well. It was a wealth of information. So being able to understand that information beforehand will probably limit our requests as well. And then also I have on here to assess the operations of our ad hoc committees. I understand the importance of the ad hoc committees and the work that the committees do. And also along with our staff analysts being able to support the committees. But right now we do have limited staff, and we have also ad hoc committees that have at least, I want to say maybe like 2 or 3 of our commissioners that are on several. I know the chair is on at least 7 of them. I know Commissioner Harris is on 7 also, but it is time consuming, and trying to re-energize the ad hoc committees themselves, because I know as far as trying to schedule these meetings, sometimes it takes a long time to schedule the meetings. So maybe monthly meetings, as the chair mentioned, would be beneficial if there is a task that's assigned to that committee. So that's also another initiative, just looking at the way the ad hocs are working so that we can improve the work also. And then I think it's the last item I have, is to reconstitute the work of our analysts, the way that we're working internally to support the ad hoc committees. So that's also an item that I have on my list of things.
Is that the new 4th goal, though? I mean, or is that part of the new 4th goal?
Yes, all of these are.
Okay.
Not to put the executive director on the spot, but given the conversation, and given that this is our last meeting of the year, at which we typically do this kind of both reflective and generative discussion, are there 1 or 2 ad hoc committees that you might identify as being prospects for sunsetting as we sunset 2024 and move into 2025? Given the reports today and looking ahead, are there any committees, not any disparaging towards their activities or their activities, including my own, but that you think could be consolidated? Because we are looking at 11 ad hoc committees. We have 9 commissioners. Perhaps 9 might be a more common sense number of ad hoc committees than 11. I think we all feel the energy around the importance of the new complaints ad hoc committee and the incredible value that it could do. Are there any candidates that you might indicate for our consideration as commissioners for sunsetting?
I think I want to also give the ad hocs a chance to, after this meeting, to come together and maybe like have their meetings. But I would recommend also combining the jail staff in one with the conditions of confinement.
Anyway, that's
off the
something,
top of my head.
we'll ask both the chairs to consider that possibility. And it's a great question, because as I'm looking at all these priorities, quote, all these goals, that have been set forth, not just by the executive director, but by the ad hocs. I think part of the process through the governance committee is going to be try to figure out what are the most important things, right? And prioritize them. And when we come back with the 2025 strategic plan and goals, after talking to everybody a little bit about what really are the priorities, what are the really important things that this commission can accomplish, we're going to trim down some of these goals and objectives that have been stated. And we have to do that because we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize for a number of reasons. There are only 9 commissioners and we all have day jobs, but also there's only so much staff. And so we are going to have to prioritize and make some tough decisions. Yes, we're going to do this 2025, but we're not going to do that. I mean, so we're going to go through that process after this hearing a bit, but I do want to, before we open it up for public discussion and comment, which we need to do, I do want to make sure if there are any questions or comments that anybody has of the executive director, her report, and any of the ad hoc committees. Oh, you're not finished?
I have one last one. I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there.
I know it's a lot. So the last initiative I have is to try to find a way to streamline the work of our oversight bodies and for us to be able to work collaboratively. We do operate in silos, and that's problematic. I know our deputy executive director has been trying to hold monthly meetings with IG, Civil Brand, also POC. So that's one of my initiatives. We also held the 2 joint meetings with SBC and POC that went well. And, I just want to look at how can we streamline the work of our oversight bodies. Thank you.
That's a good thing to do. Now, Commissioner Cooper, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I just had a question on the objective number 3, when you said access use of AI for report summaries. There's just been so much information about this AI. Are you looking at certain programs or using programs that the county is already utilizing?
I think right now I would need to work closely with the executive officer because he seems like he has more knowledge as far as AI goes. But just the wealth of, how much information that we're given from LASD, it is a lot. And then we turn it over to sometimes the commissioners, and then the commissioners turn it back over to the staff analysts asking for summaries. So I just want to make sure that we identify a program that is beneficial for us and the information that we're gathering to make it easier for our operations.
I wonder if you could work with the tech ad hoc committee too, because on on any issue that involves
Technology.
AI. Just as, by the way, the whole, what we're doing internally with the complaints process is a secondary goal of the complaints ad hoc. It's not the primary goal, but it's a secondary goal to work with the executive director, make sure we have our own internal tracking, logging, and procedures in place. Excuse me, Commissioner Callaway.
Yeah, I was just saying on the AI, usually what is used is like ChatGPT, Gemini is for Google, like all of those actual processes, large language models, and all you do is upload a PDF and tell it to give you the high points or highlights, and it just concisely gives you that thing. It's not like as the ambiguous AI like other things. So it's a pretty very upfront, easy thing to choose. You can even do it on Zoom meetings. Record the Zoom meeting, and then it'll literally tell you everything about that Zoom meeting that happened in a short, concise way. So it'll be real easy for them to put 100-page product and then get a 1-pager so that we all can just look at it real quick.
See, I'm glad you're on our committee,
Yep.
technology committee.
Great discussion. How many public comments do we have on this item, which is our strategic plan 24 and 25? Tracy?
Yes, we have 3 in the venue. Our first public comment is from Vanessa Perez.
Perez?
I had an opportunity to join the POC meeting this month, and I was disappointed on the use of force, how many use of forces were brought up for the minors and by more county officials. I can't stress it enough that we need more stricter background checks before allowing these problematic deputies and problematic officials to be working with children. And then I also want to say, I want to remind you guys not to forget about Joseph Perez and the beating that he took by Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment is T. Carter.
Mr. Carter.
So I'm commenting on in response to the executive director's points that she proposed, and I'm requesting that those points be implemented within the board. I think that would help people in furtherance with their complaints that are being filed. And second, since Mr. Garcia is here and a member from the Assistant Sheriff's Office is here, I still haven't gotten a response back from October 16th when I entered MCJ jail. 1 hour before I left USC Hospital regarding a back injury that I had. I was not listed as psychotic when I got to MCJ jail and asked staff to look at my medical paperwork because where I was housed, I should not have been housed. And they put me in the mental ward, labeled me as psychotic. I've then tried to contact the Assistant Sheriff, Paula Toker's office, who her representative is here. They hang up the telephone and say that there's no one around. Her office has been doing this for now 2 months in a row at 213-893-5001 is the number to the Assistant Sheriff who handles MCJ Jail, 213-893-5001. So I'm asking Mr. Garcia and also associate of Mrs. Tank Toker to please respond to the board as to why was I placed as psychotic on October 16th, left in there for 2 days with no clothes, no toilet paper, so I can harm myself. And then in 2 days, they came and told me if I don't ask for a supervisor, they'd let me out. There is no way a person can be labeled psychotic within 1 day and then labeled not psychotic within 2 days. And I'm still waiting on a response. So I think by implementing the executive director's points, this should maybe further help people like me in this situation to get answers. But once again, I would like Ms. Toker, Paula Toker's representative, and Mr. Garcia to respond to the board at some point regarding why I was listed as schizophrenic 1 hour before I came from USC Hospital and I wasn't. But when I get to the jail and ask for a supervisor, I was listed as schizophrenic and I'm not schizophrenic. So I'm asking
Thank you.
for an investigation into that.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Michelle Infante.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Infante. I have two things real quick. One is the importance of an ad hoc committee next year for you to think about regarding report writing. We did the presentation. We showed you the report writing. You asked the Sheriff's Department to come back. They came back and they only talked to you about what they do with regards to report writing. No one came, no one showed you how it's done and what mistakes can be made. Vanessa and I, we both showed you the mistakes that can be made and the importance of report writing. So I would ask if you think about report writing and do an ad hoc committee, because when these things go to trial, the importance of language and the way that things are written are important to judges and juries. So please think about that and the importance of the way that things are written on an investigation report and what's missing. I also wanted to talk about improving coordination regarding oversight of the LA County jails. As one oversight body of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, LASD, has proven insufficient. Over the years, the county has created 2 additional entities driven by the need to address systemic failures. The expansion was compelled by court rulings, lawsuits, and consent decrees, mental health disability lawsuits, and other human rights violations. These legal interventions underscore the severity of the issues within LASD. If the oversight framework appears duplicative and overlapping, it's not redundancy, but a system of LASD's chronic noncompliance with legal mandates. Critical issues persist: overcrowding in county jails, inadequate medical and mental health care, failure to implement reforms mandated by consent decrees. Without consistent accountability, these systemic failures remain entrenched, necessitating multiple oversight entities. LASD has an internal, they have their own internal oversight investigations themselves, internal ICIB, IA, Constitutional Policing Unit. How many more units do we
You.
need when they're not even
Thank
policing
you.
themselves?
Thank you. Our next
Thank you.
public comment is online. We have 4 online comments. We'll move to caller number 3. You are unmuted. Caller number 3, you're unmuted. Okay, we're going to move on to our next public comment. Yusef Miller. Yusef, you have been unmuted.
County Equity and Justice Coalition and Saving Lives in Custody, California. And I want to applaud the attempts at reform and strengthening the CLRB. It is something that is really needed for the safety and confidence of the community. I want to thank and congratulate the executive officer, Charmaine Mosley, for being innovative and supporting these changes that are sorely needed. With LA County, along with San Diego County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, having high in custody deaths, we need the transparency and accountability that will come from a strong CLRB, a CLRB that will ask the tough questions, the CLRB that will not take no for an answer or be intimidated by the sheriff's office, which will happen and has happened, as you already know. But we need for the CLRB to stand firm and stand for transparency and accountability as much as possible, and to fight for mechanisms that will bring about accountability in these kinds of cases. The community deserves answers. The community loved ones who are waiting to see what happens to their loved one deserves answers, and those answers will come from you. They will not be transparent from the sheriff's department. So you, as you know, with all these ad hocs that you're putting together, that there's a lot of work to be done. But I would like to also offer that you include the community in some way to help offset the amount of work that you have with 9 commissioners and 11 ad hocs. You know, that way you can use some of the transparency and some of the ability to include the community in a way that is not improper for law enforcement privacy or whatever it is that's going on. So that's another avenue to get the work done still and not overtask the commission. Thanks again, Yusef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next public comment is from Carlos Montes. Carlos, you have been unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I'm in a different computer today.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yes. Good morning. My name is Carlos Montes. I'm a member of Centro CSO Community Service Organization in Ball Heights in East LA. We organize against police brutality. Oh, well, first of all, I want to thank you for, reviewing your year and planning for next year. I'm impressed by your level of organization. Not many groups do that in the county government. I also wanted to clarify my statement from last month when I condemned and criticized the Fort Apache logo at the East LA Sheriff's. I made a comment about savages. I didn't mean to imply that Native Americans or Apaches are savages. I meant to say that the military during the Mexican-American War and the occupation treated us like savages, the U.S. military, right? The fort and the mission system were used to dominate the Native population. And Chicanos, we identify as being Native also. I also wanted to thank you all for setting the January 23rd meeting or town hall meeting regarding the vicious attack on our community and our Dodger community celebrating the Dodger celebration. We were brutally attacked. And also, not only with tear gas and concussion grenades, but also some of our community faced very serious felony charges that are still in jail and aren't able to get bailed out. Anyway, Happy New Year. I'll see you at the next event.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Selena Coleman. Selena, you have been unmuted.
I just want to say, I want to thank the commission for all the hard work. You guys started this commission long before I got involved. Tomorrow will be 9 years that Leroy Browning was murdered by LASD. And so, you know, in the effects of me being part of this as an impacted family and trying to help change within our community, it's sad to see when we create all these programs just for them to turn around and not really help the people impacted because they feel like they should be over something by now, or I don't know. I don't know, but I just know that being part of this and watching the process, I know we could do better. And I just, again, want to thank everybody because I know genuinely we are collectively trying to put something together for the betterment of Los Angeles County as a whole. And I'm going to say we can do better. We can do better. We can do better. We can do better. I just want to say thank you to Michelle because the research, and this is not new to us, right? And so being an employee of LA County for 25 years and just trying to be the best employee in the moment of work and all of that. So as a community, we know we as a whole can do better. And I just say that because in 366 days, we're going to be at a 10-year mark. And so let's see where we are a year from now as we go back into this journey of what the commission was set up and to do. So again, I say thank you respectfully to everybody on that board, every commissioner, every public comment, every community member watching. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, we have caller number 3 back. Caller number 3, you have been unmuted.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. First, I want to introduce myself. I'm Deanna Brock, the mother of Emmett Brock, who was the transgender man assaulted by Deputy Joseph Benza III. I know I talked earlier, but I would also like to say I think this new Did I get cut off?
We can hear you.
Yes, but you're back.
Okay, something keeps happening, trying to cut me off. Anyways, I was saying that I think it's great that this the complaints ad hoc committee is being formed, and I hope that community complaints will be addressed in a timely and transparent manner. In my son's situation, I made several attempts to communicate between February of 23 and September of 24, and none of them were responded to. I think the public does not have trust in the sheriff's department between the fact that complaints are not even addressed, that we see a lot of excessive force and misconduct in the media, and that we know that they police themselves in these complaints of excessive force and then determine no excessive force was used. I think there needs to be an independent review of those cases. Otherwise, there will not be any trust. And I do think there should be a forensic review in regards to my son's case of them determining there was no excessive force. I also read the guilty plea from Joseph Benza III and was very disappointed to find out that 3 sergeants and 4 deputies from that Norwalk station were involved in the lies and the cover-up. I think they should also be held accountable because they did not conduct themselves in a truthful and lawful manner. My son was lucky to have his story.
Thank you. Chair Bonner, there are no further public comments on this agenda item.
All right, so that we still have items on the agenda, and I'm going to skip to item, well, not skip to item 7. We are now on item 7 of the agenda, but I'm going to skip to item 7.2 because I want to get to the Inspector General's report. I want to actually thank Inspector General for being patient here and waiting to get to this point on the agenda. But we're going to skip over 1A, and I'm not even sure we're going to be able to get to that. But I want to say that we have attached, as you know, Inspector General Huntsman, we have attached the OIG's quarterly report regarding reform and oversight efforts of the Sheriff's Department. It's a quarterly report covering July to September. By the way, it's an excellent report. I commend everybody to read it. I mean, it's just a lot of really important, useful information, and it's a very well-written report. But having now teed that up for you, Inspector General, could you give us whatever you want to talk about?
It's kind of you to call me patient, having babbled already earlier in the meeting. I feel like I don't have to talk quite as much at this point, so I'll do less than the 10 minutes. The report, I can answer any questions you have on it. There are, I think, some important things in it, and I will pass along your appreciation of it to the staff because a lot of work goes into it. But what I wanted to talk about briefly, because we're talking about accomplishments of the COC this year in particular, is I just want to echo what the chair and former Chair Kennedy talked about regarding pushing forward on use of force and the need to do that. And Commissioner Callaway had mentioned being stiff-armed in the Heisman style. I think that's what will happen if you investigate the Benza case, but I think you should do it anyway. Benza, his attorney sent a letter to the sheriff and the head of constitutional policing after the incident in question and before the Sheriff's Department signed off on the use of force. And yet they signed off on it anyway. And now the public statement is, well, we just did that based on the reports that we read, which it turned out were all false. Well, what they really did is fail to investigate a citizen's complaint, exactly what this commission is going to concentrate on looking at. And as a result, the FBI ultimately stepped in and we see a very detailed analysis of, I think Commissioner Kennedy mentioned 7 other deputies and sergeants who possibly assisted Mr. Benza in that false preparation of a report. I mean, that's just terribly disturbing that if a deputy gets angry about something flipping him off and decides to beat the person up, that then 7 other sergeants and deputies step up to assist them in writing false paper on that. So I appreciate Michelle Infante's comments about the nuances of report writing, but here we're not talking about errors. We're talking about intentional obstruction of justice. And I suspect that the FBI will aggressively investigate that, and we will find some straight arms, perhaps in a good way. We'll be told we have to wait a bit, but don't give up, because every time this commission has pushed aggressively over time, there's been a result. And I think that that Brock case might not have come to light in the way that it did, but for the aggressive work of this commission and my own office in pushing the department to take such allegations seriously. We're not always successful, as some folks here today would be quick to remind us correctly, but the work is effective even when we're straight-armed. And then my last bit is we heard from Michelle Infante a very well prepared statement regarding the idea of overlap in oversight and how that's a burden upon the Sheriff's Department. Well, what she said is correct. It's a burden created because of repeated lapses by the Sheriff's Department in failure to follow the law. And we're currently in the middle of one regarding gangs, regarding oversight, regarding the code of silence. And if we don't push hard, there will be another layer of oversight 5 years from now that will be created to try to solve the problem we didn't solve. So we need to not feel sorry for asking for information. We can coordinate when possible. And as Sean mentioned, we coordinated in the case of the Nazi salute allegation. Sean made a request, a Public Records Act request. The department ignored it. I echoed it. They did not provide us the Lilienfeld impeachment evidence, despite the fact that he was coming to testify. I then issued a subpoena with a specific date for compliance, and they didn't respond, didn't give it to us. And then after the hearing, they posted it publicly, and that's when we got it. Now, you could say we failed. You could say we were stiff-armed, but I feel like we sent the correct information to the public about the way this process works. Our legal system is built to protect the system itself. And as a result, we need to push in order to get changes to it and compliance with the laws that are already on the books. So I think this commission has more than carried its weight this year, even though there hasn't been a change in the government's behavior. It's not for lack of publicizing it by this commission. And I appreciate that, because that's one of the things I get frustrated about, is feeling like I have to say the same things over and over because nobody seems to be listening. But that's our job. So thank you for doing that job. Thank you for all the lists of accomplishments you made. But I think the core accomplishment is that you're a lone voice publicly pointing out when the Sheriff's Department doesn't comply with new laws, when they don't comply with PRAs, when they don't even provide information to this body. Is that my 10 minutes? Oh my God. That goes to show you, I'm getting old. I thought I was way under the 10 minutes, so I'll shut up now.
I've never seen you speak so quickly.
Much quicker.
No, Max, thank you for that. Look, and thank you for the work you and your office does. And we look forward to maybe an even more cooperative relationship going forward into 2025. There's an attachment to the agenda. This is 1A that has to do with, it's a letter actually that Sean Kennedy, Commissioner Kennedy wrote when he was the chair, dated April 22nd, 2024. And it's about whether or not the Sheriff's Department ever investigated the industry Indians, and perhaps their links with an incident that had occurred. And as we sit here today, by the way, we have no idea whatsoever whether or not there has been any such investigation, even though there's certainly an indication that a deputy, whatever you want to call it, gang, clique, exclusionary group called the Indians, has existed for probably a decade, according to former Undersheriff Murakami's testimony before this commission. But in any event, in that letter, we said, we strongly recommend that the Board of Supervisors direct its county council to reevaluate its advice regarding the proposed MOU, which we proposed with the Sheriff's Department, and otherwise promote the COC's access to information essential to providing effective oversight and accountability of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. But I put this on the agenda, Commissioner Kennedy, because you actually wrote this letter, and I'm wondering whether you have any comments or thoughts on this, or would we all be repeating ourselves at this point?
Well, 8 months, long ago, the Board of Supervisors directed the Sheriff's Department to provide the ad hoc committee on deputy gangs information about what it did to investigate the industry Indians. And Under Sheriff April Tardy responded in a letter that that the department couldn't give us that information because it was confidential. And 8 months ago, we provided substantial legal authorities, published court opinions, a manual written by the Attorney General of California, all of which stated that a law enforcement agency could give an ad hoc committee of an oversight body like this confidential information as long as it was restricted to an ad hoc and they agreed to maintain the confidentiality, all of which we did. And still they won't give it to us. So 8 months ago, we asked the board of directors to talk to the county council and give and Wood County Council advise the sheriff that they could do it. We've never received a response from the sheriff, the county council, or the board of supervisors. What happened in response to this request with all of the authorities that we gave justifying our request? And my request, Mr. Chair, would be, we have a member of the county council here. What did they do?
Do you have any idea, Jensen?
It's something certainly I can look into. I know it's an issue that our office has been reviewing for some time now, so I can certainly report back with a more definite response to that.
Well, I don't know what the issue is because we provided the authority and the sheriff's department has provided nothing countering our authority. So what is the issue that the county council is looking into?
Well, I definitely understand your concern, Commissioner. I think when you're dealing with confidential information, it's a very sensitive topic. So that's something that our office is looking into and trying to see a pathway to where the confidential information can be provided to the COC if possible.
Isn't the pathway the legal authorities and the Attorney General's handbook saying it can be done?
Well, I think you're being argumentative now,
Well, I'm
counsel.
sorry.
going to have to.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was about ready to sustain the objection, but yeah, Jansen, go ahead.
Well, I do understand your concern, sir, and it's something that we are looking into.
Can we get it at the same end of the year date that the other thing, like do those both at the same time?
Date certain.
Yeah. Like
By the end of the year.
Yeah,
so
December 31st to provide a letter to say what is the issue so that we can actually help you find the documents?
I think that's implied in the county council. She said by the end of the year, we will have, they're going to forward 3.79 and whatever their legal advice is going to be, it's going to be. It should be that it's permissible to allow an ad hoc committee of this commission as the oversight to be able to access certainly closed investigations and other matters that are being denied us on the claim that they're confidential under state statute, which is just, it's not a correct interpretation of law. And I say that not just as a former federal judge, but also as a constitutional lawyer. But at any event.
And I would just note, if I could, Chair, I would just note, on behalf of the governance committee of this commission, I want to note that it is under the terms of governance of a public body to exert its own accountability for any possible breach of the standards of the confidentiality of the body to whom records are supplied. And I just want to note that it is an insult to the integrity and to the governance responsibility of every commissioner that we not be conferred those records under state law, because we are taking the necessary safeguards as a governance body with governance standards in place to uphold good governance on the back end to ensure compliance with the rules set forth in the ordinance. And that should be something that every member of this commission and every supporter of the commission, including Michelle Infante's much well-received remarks in support of the effectuation of this ordinance at today's public comment, everyone should take this personally, because the governance standards outlined are protections on the back end in support of the ordinance.
I think that's a fine statement, Commissioner Johnson. So let me, I just see the time up there, and I know we have people, there are a couple of people who wanted to comment on I guess the IG's report, but what I'm going to do, Tracy, is I'm just going to combine, let's just do a combined response. So we're not only going to take public comment on item 7, what we've just discussed, but also the general public comment. But I'm going to, with one exception, I think I'm going to have to limit it to 2 minutes. I might make an exception for one person that asked for 3 minutes, but let's start with public comment.
Okay. Our first public comment is from Vanessa Perez.
I just want to comment on the industry Indians. I strongly urge this commission to take that seriously with the industry Indians. In fact, industry is the one station that beat Joseph. So I strongly urge this commission to look into their patterns, the deputy gangs that they got there, because there's no way that they beat Joseph the way they beat him. They did it obviously for gang initiation and left him there in hopes that he died. If I wasn't there, I think they would have left him to bleed out. And him not being able, or him going to the hospital and receiving 17 staples to his head with no anesthesia, 19 stitches to his face and his ears, and staples to his legs, and then leaving him there for 3 to 4 hours and taking him to the station is unacceptable. And that shows gang behavior of them with different intentions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from T. Carter.
Mr. Carter.
In response to the OIG report, I just feel that most of the OIG reports are redundant. One example is when I filed a complaint regarding medical, I received a disposition that stated my condition was unresolved, but I have medical documents where USA Hospital says I have a dispo. No, within the last 2 years, my complaint has never been put in any report from the OIG's office. When I asked the inspector and his assistant, Dara, who dogs are usually barking in the background and she works from home with her 6-figure salary, they told me that the board would not be interested in getting a response that states unresolved. And in my opinion, I would think that the board members to this committee would want to know if complaints are coming back unresolved, and if it's coming back that in a high number of amount, they can keep track and the record of it. But the OIG's office told me that they don't feel they need to forward this when the disposition is coming back unresolved with proof that it should not have come back unresolved. So in response to the OIG's report, I feel that his reports are redundant. I feel that he comes at certain times and reads off documents at times to make it seem as though certain works are being done. Also, when people are contacting his office, sometimes elderly people are calling for their family members and they're told to go use a computer while his staff members just sit in the office and do not work. And many citizens are asking the board to implement a way for a voting process so that they can have a new OIG and a new assistant versus this OIG and his partner, Dara. If there's any way the board can implement that so citizens or the board themselves can vote on a new OIG, I think that would be helpful to the process, because keeping someone like this on the board who doesn't think it's interested to give board members copies of dispositions that says unresolved when there's actual proof, I don't think that would be fitting for the board moving forward, because he would only hinder the board moving forward to better things versus making things worse. So I really don't think we should have this OIG, and I think there should be a way for the board and also citizens or just
Thank
the board
you.
can vote on a new OIG.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Crystal Chavez. Crystal Chavez.
Good morning. As you know, the LA County Sheriff's Department unfortunately has a long history of inappropriate use of tasers. And the committee recommended to review, revise, and take appropriate action to ensure actionable changes to LAC policies and trainings to keep our residents safe. Within the recommendations on LA County Sheriff's Department use of tasers, Section 2A9, limitations of use of tasers on at-risk individuals such as individuals who are or present an altered state, individuals with known or identifiable physical, mental health, learning, or other disabilities. Reading LASD's 5-06/04503 CEW under prohibited use, nowhere on there is there anything on these at-risk individuals. However, I did see that it states the department members should avoid using CEWs on subjects who are on elevated or unstable surface, which could result in significant impact injury. Significant impact injury. Sunday morning, I watched a viral video of LA County Sheriff's taser a gentleman, and the video you can see clearly the gentleman seemed to be in distress, altered state, and mentally unaware. Once he was tased, he dropped backwards onto the floor, and you can hear the crack as he hit his head on the pavement. It made me wonder, is this their MO and this is how they treat disabled individuals or people who are in an altered state and cannot comprehend what is going on? And that was why they chose to omit this recommendation from the COC and OIG. The fact of the matter is, for the safety of our community, individuals need to be held accountable when they violate policy.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next public comment is from Gina Youngblood.
Hi, my name is Tiara Thomas. I'm going to speak on behalf of my mother, Gina Youngblood. It's been 197 days since my beloved brother's death. The family was told we would have the footage before the next COC meeting, which is today, and we still haven't received it. You would think it would get easier, but that's not true, because losing a loved one behind law enforcement with no explanation is tormenting. We, the family, want to know what is the protocols for law enforcement when it comes to citizens in custody. I feel like my brother was targeted by Lancaster Sheriff's deputies due to stereotypical racial profiling just by his looks and him being in the area he was at the time. We've been to several meetings and we continue to hear the same thing. All inmate deaths has been caused by unknown issue or medical problem. How is that? How do you not know what happened to your inmates that you guys are supposed to keep a close eye on? My brother's death is still unknown, and on his death certificate that we received, it states unknown. We deserve to know how and when my brother's death occurred. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Cindy Nunez.
Ms. Nunez, if you need a little extra time, let me know.
Oh,
'cause you did
Commissioner,
request it.
can I get the 3 minutes?
You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm truly sorry that they sent you here specifically with no knowledge for impacted families. Sheriff Luna's at a funeral, but we had to bury Francisco 9 months ago. That's 281 days today because Luna can't control Lancaster Station. Shortly after us, the Youngbloods lost Eugene Youngblood as well. How is Captain Bartlett allowed to send me this letter? He found his deputies to appear acting reasonable. Just to make it clear, I'm accusing Lancaster Station of the murder of my brother, harassing and retaliation after the fact. Where in the policy does it state that they can violate my brother's civil rights, murder him, dump his body, and then cover it up? Also retaliate and harass because I'm submitting complaints against them? Why is there continuous zero accountability for these deputies? Why did Captain Bartlett deny contact with Francisco on March 9th? Later says we did have Francisco. A new deputy detained Francisco, but let him go. So you guys let Francisco Nunez go? I demand that deputy's body cam where he lets my brother go. I've obtained body camera footage of that day on my own, not by LASD. I want to know who was assigned the Crown Victorian patrol car with the last 4 numbers of the license plate being 1047 on March 9th. I want to see the body cams of 5 specific deputies surrounding that specific patrol car. Who was in the back of that patrol car? It was not Eric Guzman and it was not Robert Garcia. I have pictures of 5 deputies that I'm very interested in, looking in the backseat of that 1047 patrol car, very interested in who and what was in that patrol car. I would love to see their body cameras. How does homicide not see this foul play? Eric Guzman was severely beat and is fighting a federal case now. Robert Garcia, falsely imprisoned in the county jail for 6 months, still doesn't know why. Why did Detective Sanchez impersonate himself as an attorney to Robert Garcia at Pitches Detention Center? That's against the law. That is Penal Code 148.9, Section A, and especially in a county or government facility. This is unacceptable behavior. And Captain Bartlett, again, sent me a letter stating, you guys are acting per policy and procedure and in reason. How? Jonathan Rodriguez, the 14-year-old who last seen Francisco alive in that alley, he was shot 5 times. How did they miss Jonathan in the footage with Francisco in it? We didn't miss him. He's in the footage. There was a truck in the middle of this chaos on that morning. We noticed it. They don't get pulled over. They don't get searched. People are running away. What else did they miss? Another fun fact, Francisco's still dead in case anybody cares. Miss Williams from the OIG, she was present when we were shown the footage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Cassandra Hernandez.
281 days since Francisco Nunez was murdered, kidnapped, and tortured by Lancaster Sheriff's Department. 281 days of unanswered answers. 281 days of no justice. 281 days of harassment. Days of of evidence being tampered with. Days of reports not matching. 281 days of missing video footage. How's it the remaining footage of Francisco made contact with the sheriff station can be given to us? Release the video. Release where Francisco was put in a cop car. Release where you beat him. Release where the video of the sheriff placing his body on a crime scene that was created for a cover-up for something extremely sickening. Release the video where he was there for 5 days, because he sure wasn't in the bushes for 5 days that allegedly the sheriff's team has stated for their cover-up. How is it the camera in the alley is facing up the sky? How far will you allow this story to be covered up? To the higher authority, constitutional policing, if you allow this, you are very much no better than the sheriffs committing the crime. You are the problem. Who are you covering up for? Would you allow this if this was your loved one? The sheriffs feel comfortable committing crimes because there is no accountability. Why do they feel comfortable kidnapping and murdering Francisco? Is this something that they normally do? Is this what your sheriffs do? Walking around hiding behind a shield? I will say this proudly. I will, and we will ring that bell. You won't shut Francisco's family out. My family, you won't intimidate me. We are here to tell his story, to tell the truth, to let you know Francisco had an army behind him. He was very much loved, not a homeless like the cover-up team stated. He was a cherished uncle, my uncle, their brother, his son, his friend, his dad. We all stand here as a family, as a community, to demand justice. We all unite together to represent. You can't keep hiding. You can't keep hiding by disgrace of a badge. You can't keep covering up our loved ones as you kill them. We won't be another cover-up story. Justice for who? Nunez.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Raquel Derfler.
Good afternoon, Raquel Derfler from Cancel the Contract. I'm going to piggyback off of my colleagues' comments to you about this gentleman in Palmdale that was tasered on, it was December 14th. So there was a DUI checkpoint. This was at the hands of the Palmdale station. So obviously in the video, the gentleman is inebriated. So we are not here to say that they shouldn't have pulled him over, that they shouldn't have, attempted to arrest the gentleman. What we are saying here is that this department, which is already, that particular station is under a settlement agreement, and it seems unable to follow their own policy when it comes to tasing. The gentleman was clearly 5 sheets to the wind. He was talking in the video about like his brother had died, so he was emotionally distressed. So they let him like kind of ramble on. At no point try to take him into custody. The gentleman does stand up. It appears that he stumbles forward. He appears to listen to what they're saying. He takes a step back and actually falls down. So at that point, it's not I don't understand why they didn't basically try to handcuff him then, if they were concerned about his safety or the safety of the officers. But once again, the man was clearly very drunk, so much that he stumbled and couldn't keep himself upright. From that point on, he is not warned like, we're going to tase you. I don't understand what danger they thought they were in. His hands were clearly visible. They go ahead and tase the gentleman, once again, without warning. It appears to be in retaliation because towards the end of that conversation, he's kind of talking back to them and basically talking, I will not say the word. He falls, hits his head because he goes as stiff as a board, and cracks his head on the pavement. So we don't know if he's okay, if they took him to the hospital, was a supervisor called, and we are asking that the OIG investigate this incident and to find, like, we know they're out of policy, but to like dig deeper. And we also want to know if the gentleman is still alive.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Michelle Infante.
My name is Michelle Infante. I'm with Dignity Power Now. I wanted to finish my public speaking points regarding the coordination, regarding oversight of the jail. I left off where there were the Sheriff's Department has 3 departments of their own. Despite these internal units, systemic problems persist, highlighting the effectiveness or lack of independence within the LASD self-monitoring efforts. The COC has a critical role in ensuring accountability and transparency. However, its recent proposal to relinquish visual oversight responsibilities, risks undermining these goals. Visual oversight, such as reviewing use of force cases, misconduct allegations, or jail conditions, is a powerful tool to identify patterns of abuse and demand accountability and restore especially public trust. By stepping back from these responsibilities, COC risks losing its capacity to serve as an independent and transparent check for LASD. Multiple oversight entities exist not by choice, but by necessity, as LASD continues to struggle with compliance, transparency, accountability, and reform. Independence and critical oversight functions. Relinquishing any part of this responsibility jeopardizes the momentum towards systemic accountability, leaving LASD unchallenged and perpetuating the very abuses oversight was created to address for community. Please don't forget about that part.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next public comment is from Allison Rubenfeld.
Hello, my name is Allison Rubenfeld. I'm with the Loyola Anti-Racism Center and Check the Sheriff. First, thank you for taking the essential step of adopting a ad hoc committee for complaints. The commission should also include community input in this process because it needs to be evaluated whether community members feel safe conveying abuse to the department itself. And the complaint system cannot be effective without beneficial input from community members who need to feel like it's going to go somewhere, which is inherently fraught when they're reporting to LASD, who we know has not historically done anything with these complaints. Second, regarding priorities for this commission, in nearly every agenda item today, we've heard about the barriers that this commission's lack of confidential information proposes for any kind of effective oversight. There is no incentive for the BOS or county council to give this commission information that would lead the county to have potential liability. Therefore, I think that a lot of the resources this commission need to be devoted to looking specifically into how to gain access into that information so that all of these ad hoc committees can be effective and we can move forward with actual oversight for LASD. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment in person is Stephanie Luna.
Hey everyone, it's been a minute. I don't know, just sitting here listening to the family speak, just, want to take a moment to, send you guys my love. I lost my nephew the same way. He was shot August 12, 2018 by 2 sheriff deputies seeking initiation into a deputy gang. We faced the harassment, we faced the intimidation, we faced the retaliation for going up against the department. And, this is a department that operates under the guidance of anonymity. They operate under corruption. They operate under, covering up misconduct for one another. And, it's been coming here since 2018, and to see the same pattern of problems continue and persist, it's frustrating. But I've also seen a lot of work get done through the commission. Just hearing the fact that there's going to be an ad hoc committee specifically for the complaint process, it was really good to hear. I've dealt with the complaint process. I'm still currently dealing with the complaint process. I'm doing my own research and investigation of testing how the complaint process works, just because I've been failed by it so many times that I've took it upon myself to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And, getting notices in the mail that a deputy has been disciplined, and I have 5 days or 5 to 7 days to call them to ask what disciplinary measures were taken. I've taken the 5 days, called them in, and they told me that they can't release that information. And so I think that as part of this ad hoc committee, one thing that does need to be looked into is the issue of transparency when looking into the complaint process and really getting to the bottom of what that means that a deputy has been held liable for whatever misconduct they committed. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the online public comments. We have 3. First, we'll move to Yusef Miller. Yusef, you have been unmuted.
Yes, Yusef Miller, Saving Lives in Custody, California. And what we deal with when it comes to people, loved ones who've been lost or impacted families, Transparency is never the enemy. Transparency is the solution. Transparency is the fix. So to the Nunez family and to the Luna family, justice for your families and transparency for your families so that we can help fix this machine that's been going rogue for far too long. And hopefully these ad hoc committees will help, grease that engine for reform that we need so that other Luna families and other Nunez families don't have to go through the same thing. We can fix it on the ground right here with these justice warriors that come here every time. So when we look at saving lives in custody, California, we need to promote the transparency, and with transparency comes accountability. It's not enough to say we know how this happened and why it happened. To hold accountable those deputies who made it happen and were responsible for it to happen. So we are sitting here in a crossroads with these ad hoc committees that we could potentially do the right thing and bring accountability and bring transparency to the community to build that trust that we so sorely need. And I want to thank the Inspector General for calling out the Sheriff's Department for not providing those transparency. Keep it up, keep it strong, because it's nothing but an uphill fight from here on out. They dig themselves in their trenches. They put up their bulwarks so that nothing can get through, but we need to call them out, and not just call them out here. We need to make it public. We need to make it media-wise, to make it transparent to the community that this is going on, so that we don't keep it in this little secret.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Lupe Hervias. Lupe, you have been unmuted. Okay, she's no longer available for her comment. We're going to move on to Selena Coleman. Selena, you have been unmuted.
Hello, everybody. Again, I just want to say in 2015, the DOJ had an order, and Antelope Valley LASD didn't adhere to that order. And so when they talk about footage and camera footage, we never got to see any of the footage. All of that disappeared, right? And so as we move on, I would hope that we create programs to reach out to the impacted families, because the youth that are in there, right? So when Leroy Browning got killed almost 9 years ago, tomorrow will be 9 years ago, these were babies, and now they're teenagers, and they're feeling some type of way. And so no matter how much I try to conversate and educate and have them to understand that it wasn't personal, it was personal. It was personal, right? Because this was their dad. And so as we continue to impact our children, let's create programs so they can discuss and talk about what's really going on, and maybe the community can see what they're doing. And when I'm saying community, our officers, whether they be brothers or sisters, they are our community because they live somewhere within our community. And it impacts them, it impacts their children, it impacts our schools, it impacts the behavior of what's going on in the schools. And so I say, let 2025 be a mission about our babies and our children and the impacted individuals, because you can get PTSD from police brutality in our community. And as much as we see it, a lot of our community that watches TV and see it on social media, and it's just sent to them, it's unhealthy, right? And so as we move forward in 2025, let it be about positive change and transparency for all the families, the ones that are still in 100 days, and then the years, right? Because my countdown is 366 days to 10 years. And I'm still dealing with it with my grandsons and my daughter, because he was a good dad and a good provider in spite of what the community felt. So again, thank you for all the hard work, and let's continue to move forward in a positive light in 2025. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next public comment is from Paloma Serna. Paloma, you have been unmuted.
I am with the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and the Saving Lives in Custody of California. I send my condolence to the Nunez and to Youngblood and Luna family. I've also lost a daughter in San Diego County, Elisa Serna. So we demand, and I do use that word, demand transparency. I don't believe it's right that the sheriff department should be able to withhold information. It took us 5 years to get any information regarding our daughter's death. And it's not because the sheriff department gladly just handed over, evidence, videos, audio, documents. We had to fight hard in the court. I live in Montana and I had to travel, and I am in San Diego at this moment. I have to travel here multiple times throughout just every year just to be able to go to court and get what we need, which is answers of what happened, and knowing what happened, what needs to be done next is to hold these deputies accountable. And that's starting with the sheriff, because the deputies, they get away with murdering our loved ones because of the sheriff. All they're doing is following their step and their command. And it is not right for the families, for grieving families that cannot even mourn for their loved ones. We have to attend meetings, press conferences, rallies, everything, just to make the community know what's taking place. And it is not right. Hold the sheriff department accountable. Continue to do the good work that you guys are doing, fighting to get documents, everything that you need, so you could do your own investigation. We cannot rely on the sheriff department.
Thank you. Chair Bonner, there are no further public comments. I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. The executive director prepared a 2024 list of accomplishments of the commission that is going to be attached and made part of the record of this hearing. She also prepared a proposed fourth goal for the 2025 strategic plan, which we're going to take a look at, but that'll also be attached to the record of this hearing. Let me just thank my colleagues for their dedication and efforts and commitment to the Oversight Commission's mission and participation today, and also the executive director and her staff for the work they put into making this an important hearing of the commission. Before I adjourn the meeting, though, I'm going to look around the table at my fellow commissioners and say, does anybody have any thoughts, comments, or questions they want to make before I declare this hearing adjourned? This hearing of the Oversight Commission is adjourned. Thank you.